We're live. What's going on, everybody? Happy Tuesday. Used to saying hump day, but guess we'll have to get used to doing it on Tuesday now. Which works. It's all right. Wednesday, Tuesday, don't matter what day you get the information, it's all the same. You're going to have to bear with me. I've had a migraine for the last 3 days and not been doing very well, so I just, there's a notification now. So, yeah, I haven't been feeling very well. So probably won't go over. I haven't been getting a lot of sleep. I take my pain meds and they wire me out. I can't sleep on them. They make me anxious, nervous, and I have to take them or I'm in major. I woke up this morning. Oh God, it was bad. So um, I hadn't slept much, but I guess the reaction I have to the pain meds is nowhere near as bad as the pain, and they do a good job of getting rid of the pain. So kind of a have to do thing. But man, I sure pay for it. I get anxious, nervous, cold sweats, uneasy stomach. I have to eat, definitely have to eat before I take it. And I made the mistake early on. I didn't know, nobody said anything. Eat a little cereal or something like that. And then they're like, oh, no, you definitely don't want to do dairy. And I'm like, well, now you tell me. So I basically have to take them with a stomach, pill to help keep my stomach settled when I take them, but I still get anxious, nervous, nauseous. Just not a good feeling, but it sure beats the pain. That's for sure. They're pretty bad. It's actually, technically, it's not migraine pain. It's nerve damage in my neck from either car wrecks or football or a combination of the two. So I don't know. But I've got some nerve damage, and it started as what we considered a migraine until we found out later that it was that. But I still take the same meds for it, so hopefully it goes away. But I'm on day 3 now, and sometimes I feel the last 4 or 5 days, and I don't get them often, thank God. But anytime the weather, and I can't see y'all's posts yet, I'm still sharing links, but anytime the weather kind of gets moist and rainy and then cold, if it's raining and getting colder, boom, that'll trigger it. Or if I'm working overhead, and my neck's at an odd angle, hanging drywall, I found out gives me hanging ceilings, gives me, anytime I work overhead for any amount of time, it'll definitely do it too. So I just have to take it easy. Don't do any overhead work. But rolling paint, looking up, or anything like that, if I do it for an extended amount of time, guaranteed headache. Cold weather, cold rainy weather coming in, which makes it kind of almost like a rheumatoid thing, like an arthritic thing. But I guess the nerve that's damaged goes through the spine. There's like a little bone tube that the nerve goes through, and the nerve's damaged. So when I do certain things for a long time, it pinches, I guess, and works on that nerve, and it swells up. So when it swells up, it doesn't have anywhere to go because it's inside that bone tube, right? And it just swells up, and as it swells, it gets more and more, I guess, impacted by it. Irritated is the word I'm looking for. Irritated by it because it's swelling and it puts compression on it, so it just makes it worse and worse and worse. Till it just gets crazy bad, man. It's just. I remember when the uh, orthopedic surgeon that did my shoulder surgery looked at, I went into him because I had some nerve issues in my neck. And or in my shoulder, I had what I found out was nerve pain. It kind of started out on my back and then moved to my shoulder and then down my arm. And I'm like, what the hell? So my general practitioner was out. And so I went to see the old surgeon that did my shoulder. And he said, well, let's have a little. So he did an MRI on it. And he's like, Do you ever get headaches? I'm like you wouldn't believe. He's like, yeah, you got nerve damage, man. And so it's operable, but it's risky because it's so high up. If something went wrong, I'd lose my arms and because it's in my neck, I'd lose my arms and my leg. I'd be quadriplegic if something went wrong. And like, I'll take pain meds. I'll deal with the nausea and the sickness and all that. Definitely much better than dealing with the pain. So one thing it's another, man. But I got all these shared. Couple more to go if they'll let me. Nope, I'll do them later. Just a second, let me get this straightened up. All right. Okay, all right, now I can read chat. What's going on, Clint? What's up, Chris? Good to see you, brother. What's going on, Richard? Not much, brother. Good to see you, man. What's going on, Brian? Doing good, brother. How about yourself? Well, other than the damn migraine, but hope nothing happened. What's going on, Benny? Bullshit, huh? What are we talking about? What's going on, Curtis? What's up? RSO. Yeah, well, that's starting to work on me too. I can't hardly do that either. What's up, Reefer? Good to see you, brother. What's going on, Beanie? What's up, bro? So hope everybody's having a good week so far. I'd rather be doing this on a Wednesday, but Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So there's a couple of days in between here and Saturday, but I guess Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, it was the same way. If we did it Wednesday, it was a couple of days till Saturday. So either way works for me. So does anybody got any questions? This is a Q&A type format. Benny, anybody else got any distilling questions before we just start rambling about different distilling topics? What Clint and I were talking about earlier, maybe? Let some people trickle in here. Hey, Teresa. Berries, cranberries and blueberries from Alaska. Awesome. I love me some. Now I've not done cranberry, but I've done some blueberry wine and blueberry shine and blackberry and strawberry, but I've not done the cranberries yet. Oh, the cranberry sounds pretty interesting, especially a good tart cranberry wine. I don't know. We talk about wine, somebody might get mad. After last week, I forgot to put the old man hammer on that fella. So I'll have to see if I can't do that. Well, that's a good question. With different things, it's with craft distillers and home distillers, it's not like a bottle, a commercial. Commercial distillers basically, they've got a certain proof on their label, so they have to proof it to exactly as close as they can get to what's on that label, by law. But for us home distillers, we have the luxury of being able to proof it to whatever we think is the best. And of course, one of the best ways to do that is to, proof it down, take a sip and proof it down some more and just keep proofing it down little by little until you get the right flavor alcohol combination. And then check it and see where you're at. I know a lot of people tend to proof their brandies down a little bit more, like in the 70s and 80s, to get a little bit more flavor, because they get a little bit more flavor coming through. Uh, a lot of people seem to, be under the impression that, higher alcohol content generally means less flavor. And, up to a certain point, it does, like if you're, making a vodka, more of a neutral flavor. It's called, they call it a neutral, is because you basically distill a lot of your flavor out. And a lot of the flavor is carried over in the water. So the less water that you have, coming off the tap, generally is going to be a little bit less flavorful. Yeah, yeah. Steeping is definitely. I used to cook it all the time, but after scorching it on a few occasions, and getting tired of, and my burner before I got my banjo burners, I had a one of those turkey fryer type burners, right? And it'd focus all that heat in one spot, and it was really difficult to try to cook it without getting a little bit of scorch on it. Sometimes it wouldn't be so bad that I ruined the rum, but you could still, get a little bit off flavor and some of that, funk. And so I started reading, and I mean, you can gelatinize your corn by steeping it. And what you want to do is, you figure out how many pounds per gallon you're going to do. So we got 25 pounds. Yeah, right. And if we do 2.5 pounds per gallon, that means we're going to use 10 gallons of water and 25 pounds of corn, or 20 gallons in a 50-pound bag, right? So, so if you're doing a 50-pound bag and you got a, pretty good size fermenter that'll hold 30, 40 gallons, be plenty of room with the corn and everything. Coolers work really, really well. Or you can insulate a fermenter, and if it's, summertime, it's not a problem, as much a problem as it becomes in the winter. So in the wintertime, if you can bring it in, keep it where it's warm, it's going to work a lot better. Or in coolers inside, works real well. But what you want to do is just get your water hard boiling. So you've got 20 gallons, right, for a whole bag of corn. So we're just going to say crack corn, bag crack corn, 50-pound bag, and keep everything simple. So we're going to hard boil that 20 gallons of water. So we'll pour 18, 17, 18 gallons of that 20 into the cooler or insulated, mash barrel. And we'll, use our drill with the mash, with the stir. I use a mud mixer. A lot of people like paint mixers. Both work pretty well. But I use my little mud mixer, and you can rig it up to where your drill, stays there and on in the on position. And while you, slowly pour in your corn and start adding it to this boiling water that you just added to the cooler. And so you add it in there and you keep it stirring, keep it stirring. So once you get all your corn in there, you hit the clock, you look at your clock and see what time it is. And so you want to keep it at 185 plus for at least 90 minutes to, a couple hours. So it's hour and a half to 2 hours. So you add your corn, and you've got that 2 or 3 gallons on the side, still boiling. Keep it boiling, but not rolling to where it's going to evaporate a lot off over the next 90 minutes, because you want to keep it hot, but you don't want to evaporate off a lot of water. You want to keep it, 20 gallons if you can. So you use a thermometer, cover it, close your cooler, and every, 10, 15 minutes, check it out. 15 minutes is fine. Check your temperature. And as it gets below 185, put some more of that 200 plus, degree water in there and stir it in real good. Make sure it gets all over your corn, kind of spread it. And just add a little bit at a time to help keep that corn at that 185 degrees. Now, like I said, in the summer, it's not as hard as it is in the wintertime. So in the wintertime, you might want to keep a little extra water out, maybe 3 or 4 gallons, because it's going to take a little bit longer, and well, it's going to cool down quicker, in the wintertime. And so you can add a little bit, you know, a little bit of water. Just keep that temp up to 185 and keep it 185 plus, and it'll gelatinize in about 90 minutes to 2 hours. And then once it gets to that point, you know, if you've got some water left over, maybe a gallon or two, pour it out and replace whatever the amount is. You can measure the amount, but you can dump that and you can add cold water. So that way you don't have to wait so long to get you know the temps down. But don't pour it in yet. At 185, you can add your high temp amylase, right? So after you've gelatinized your corn, now some people will add the high temp amylase before. Now, if you go beyond 2.5 pounds of corn per gallon, you'll definitely want to use a little bit. We talked about that last week. You want to use a little bit of that alpha high temp alpha amylase um, as you're adding the corn, right? You also want to make sure that water that you're boiling is around 5.3, because we found, and it's just like making inverted sugar. You use acid, and you want to get that acid in there to help catalyze and speed up the process, and having that 5.3 or so pH on the water that you're boiling helps the conversion, right? It helps get those starches out of the corn and hydrolyze that corn and gelatinize it. And so once you get to that point, you 185, then you can add all the rest of your amylase. If you've added a little to start to make it manageable, that's fine. And if you add it all at the beginning, that's fine as well. I like to gelatinize mine kind of first, so I can check the gel and see how well it gelatinizes. So I can see if, you know, make sure that it's fully gelatinized before I add that high temp alpha. And then you just add that high temp alpha onto it and stir it in real good. And then, like I said, you know, the rest of your water. So if you got, you know, if it's winter and you've used quite a bit and you only have a gallon left, then you can pour that gallon out and just get a gallon of cold water and pour it over top of it and start cooling it down a little quicker, because it does take quite a while to cool down. If you have a chiller, you know, this is the time that you can use it, because we're going to get it down to now 150, you know, degrees. Now you want to look at if you're going to add any other adjunct grains. So if we're going to add some barley or malted grains or malted barley or something like that, you know, you're going to cool it down to the malt adding temps. And I'll throw you up your little chart here. And you'll definitely want to go online and check this chart out, because it's a really good chart. Let's see here. Nope, not there. Let me find my file here. Distilling class picks. Here we go. And this chart. Now this chart right here, this green range is called your saccharification range. So this is the range when you start getting a lot of conversion on your sugars. Now generally, this would be when you would add your powdered alpha, right? But because we now have the high temp, we don't need to deal with that now. So we're going to add our malt. So on barley malt, it shows you here at around 155. You can start adding your yeah, it is, brother. So you can add your barley malt at barley malt barley malt at about 155 or so. Now some of these, you know, you'll have to wait a little bit before you add them if you're worried about um, utilizing the endogenic enzymes in it, right? So if you're wanting to use those and you're using less high temp and you're really just using those, then you really don't need the high temp uh, if you're going to use barley. But these days, high temp alpha is pretty much, even if I'm using malted grains, I'm going to use a little bit, maybe not the full. Maybe, I'm have to probably go in here and get me a little something else, because I'm about to drink the last of this 145. I about to knock it out the other night, and I didn't. I'm going to get me some of my. I don't know if I can proof down or not. I have to go see. High quality H2O right there. Okay, so where were we? So anyway, if you have some barley or some other grains that you're going to add, you know, this chart will show you the range and the temperature that you want to use it. Not as critical if you're not going to be utilizing the endogenic enzymes within these grains themselves. So if not, then 155, you can go ahead and add your rye, your barley, your wheat, whatever you want to, oats. But it shows you here on here, rye is generally a little bit less. You can wait till the 140s to add your rye if you want to, especially if it's a malt. But you can follow this chart, and it's a great thing to have on your phone or whatever with you. If you're trying a bunch of different new grains that you're not used to, it's definitely great to have. Uh, Let me go ahead and oh, so we got other things going on. All right, so Clint will hand you other questions while I continue with this. So you've got it down to 150 now, so you can add your malt and other grains if you're going to. Now, as far as adding the liquid glucose, you're going to have to look at your labels, because some will have you adding it at 140 to 50. Some will have you adding it at about 100 degrees, right? 100, 110. So it really just depends on what you've got and where its origins. I do know that beta glucanase, which is not the same as glucoamylase, but I know a lot of people sometimes get the two confused, because beta glucanase and glucoamylase sound a lot alike because it's both got that gluca in it, but they're different. So, and usually most people get the beta glucanase from the actual malt. If you're using a malted grain, it'll have the alpha naturally in it and the beta glucanase as an endogenic enzyme, right? The source comes from within the grain itself. Uh, but if you're using like a liquid or a powder, look on your label, and you'll want to cool it down to that point and add it. And you definitely want to add it at the upper end of the scale. So if they say 100 to 110, add it at 110. If it says 150 to 60, 140, 50, always add it at the upper end of that, because that's when it's most active and works the best. But don't exceed that temperature, because you can denature those enzymes pretty easily. So once you get to that, you let her cool down and add your glucose at whatever temp that needs to be added. You've already added your adjunct grains. You got all the water in there that you need. I will say that if you're adding other grains, of course, you're going to need more water, right? Because we calculated, 2.5 pounds of corn per gallon. So if it's just going to be a corn mash, we're good. But if you're adding, other grains, adjunct grains, you're going to have to, of course, add some additional water for each of those. That's the same ratio, should be good. But if you do use a higher percentage of like the wheat, the rye, and barley and oats, especially wheat and rye, you get a lot of glucans in there, and they make uh, specific enzymes that helps break down those glucans, and I know Clint likes using the Seb Flow and the Sebamil and the Seb products and the Seb Star and Viscous Seb. That's what we're, uh, and those work pretty well with glucans. Basically when you're gelatinizing a grain other than corn, our corn is like a yellow gel, unless it's a white corn, but it's like a yellow gel. Whereas when you start gelatinizing some of these other grains, different glycemic index and a different, type, you get a little bit different look. It's kind of gummy and, kind of like cooking oatmeal, when you eat oatmeal, and you get that look instead. So there are some enzymes that will help break those down as well and make things more manageable and easier to work and mash, and you can add those at that temperature as well, whatever it calls for on the label, because they all vary. I've seen, especially between powder and liquid too. But the liquid glucose, I've seen some that goes 100, 110. I've seen some that are 140, 50. So you definitely want to, and know which one it is. And if it's not on the label, just jump online and check the company out and see what they say, or call them, because it definitely should be on the label. All right. But after that, you just, you can check and see what kind of conversion you got with iodine, and see if you got some remnant starches. If not, then you're pretty good to go. Then you can start checking your starting gravity, right? And, if we check the gravity out, see what we got. If we got a pretty good conversion, we won't need to bump it up any. But, if something happens, we didn't get a really good conversion, add a little dextrose or something like that, or corn syrup, to it. Not going to really impact your flavor much, but bump it up a little bit, if you need to get it up, to 1070, 106070 if you didn't get a real good conversion. Most places, if they get it up to 1060, that's fine. Commercial places, 1060 is fine with them. They're on a schedule. They'll mash in 3-4 days later. They're ready to go. 1055, 1060, run it. They're ready to go, time's money. And they got, big vats, thousands and thousands of gallons. So time is of the essence, and they got barrels to fill. So it becomes more of a business decision at that point than trying to push it to get that little bit more and flavor. You got to consider the flavor. A lot of people would rather, it be a little bit lower going in. It makes a little smoother liquor. But as far as proofing down, yeah, it depends on the distillate. Really, brandies tend to be a little bit lower. But 80 to 110 is generally the range for whiskeys and bourbons. But I love some of that 120, 30 proof, barrel proof bourbon. I'm definitely, enjoy, sipping on that. So, it's a personal preference once it gets to that point. But if you're going into a barrel, proofing is going to be a something to think about as well. The higher proof that goes into a barrel, you get a little bit more penetration into the wood with, that thinner bodied, spirit getting into the pores a little deeper. You get a little bit more tannins. You generally tend to pull different flavors out, as, opposed to a little lower proof. You'll pull a little less tannins and some more, uh, character from the wood itself. You'll get some more almond, tasting, some, I've got a good chart for that as well. But you'll get some of the shit. Trying to think of the sugars, the sweetness, the caramel notes from the wood. And somewhere I've got a little chart here. That's the chart there. But but the lower proof tends to pull in. Now here's an oak aroma. So this is different chars on your barrel and what kind of notes. You get vanilla notes, and also not just a char, but the proof that you go in can have an impact on these flavors as well. So that's another consideration is what proof do I want to go into the barrel at. And I 110 to 20, a lot of bigger distilleries that put out a lot of liquor, it's a business decision, so they tend to go in a little higher proof. I think bourbon has a TTB restriction. It has to go in at a certain proof or less, so it can't exceed that. But strangely enough, sometimes when you age in a barrel, sometimes the proof goes up, sometimes the proof goes down, and they say it depends on where it's located in the rick house. Interesting. But that's definitely, there's a lot of variables that go into deciding what proof. So not a single. I wish there was just a cut and dry answer for that, but it's definitely would depend on the distillate and the preference of the person drinking it. What's going on up in Canada? What's going on, Scott? Good to see you, brother. What's up, JJ? Yeah, help keep you warm. Sipping that schnapps. And again, it just depends. If a lot of people, if you're making vodka, man, that's going to go up to 190, and you're going to proof it down to probably around 100, and you know, pretty neutral. Yeah, you don't want to add it. You want to add it at the upper end of the range, but you don't want to go over. Yeah, definitely don't want to denature it. He's almost Canadian. He's not quite there. He's in probably he's probably in not golf ball driving range, but he's pretty close to the border. I think he's talking about Chris Palin. I don't know. Oh, Beauchamp. Okay. I think the guy from last week was Garth, the one that was trolling us last week. I think I did a little research on him. I forgot to ban him. So if he does come back, we'll send him packing. But I think he was from up there. A lot of his friends on his friends list was. He didn't list where he was from. Of course, most trolls never do. But all you got to do is look at all the friends commenting on their stuff, and it's pretty much they were all Canadian. So I'm assuming that he probably was. How many runs do other people get from a 20-pound propane? Well, it depends on your steel size. So, you're going to, with a larger steel, you're going to run a little bit warmer and probably a little bit longer. But I generally get about 2.5. And it seems it's always the fucking half because a lot of times you'll get in the middle of the run or towards, right about the time you hit hearts and and it starts giving out. And then the cussing begins. And then you have to find that other propane tank. I know I had another one, but it's always best to definitely keep some spares around because it sucks to have to turn everything off and then run to the gas station and exchange or grocery store or Lowe's, wherever you go. I just call him Carpenter. Cargo. So it's like a clothing line for mechanics or something similar to that. Yeah, we got a lot of tubas. Yeah. Yeah, I've got a 18 and a half and I run about 15 and I can get a couple out of it. I can get a couple runs. But I tend to run it hot and fast, especially with the banjo burners. And I'd say it will depend on your burner too and how many PSI and how big it is because um, yeah, they don't last as long with that big burner. That big 10-inch burner goes a little quicker. But then you got to figure in if you're doing some cooking and boiling water to mash in with, and you know that's figured in. Probably do that once and then get maybe a run and a half out of it, and then you're going to need another one. But it's always just best to keep buying them, and as soon as one goes out, replace both. Or keep three, and when one runs out, or you get a couple out, always keep them cycled so you never run out. It's a pain in the ass. But to answer a lot of people's question, I've had the question asked a million times: is it okay to turn it off and pick back up later and distill it? And yes, you can do that. Again, the first little bit that comes off might be a little headsy. You're not gonna have to worry about four shots. Those are pretty much all gone. Not all gone, but for the most part, you'll find some fours throughout the whole run, but the majority of them will be gone early. But you will get a little bit of heads, and you can just pitch them off. It's not going to be near as much as you would save. It's not going to be 50 milliliters per gallon or anything like that at this point. But yeah, you can pick back up where you left off and go. And if you want to, you can dump your distillate back in your back set, start over, and that counts as a second run, right? And it's you're just proofing it down with the back set, which maintains a lot of flavor, and you can get your second run in. You've already stripped a little bit of your fores and heads off, so yeah, you'd be ready, good to go. Oh, let me write one. But once you get into a certain group, and another factor would be whether you're using copper or stainless. Copper will transfer and hold heat better than stainless, so it's going to be a little more efficient than a stainless. So that's something to consider too, and how long it takes you to boil water and how much water you're boiling, for the mash in. And so it's best to not try to cut it that close and always keep extras on hand. So anytime you're starting your still, I don't care how much you think you got in that tank, have an extra full tank ready to go. And when the second you swap those out, well, the next day, get that other tank refilled. That way you'll always have that full tank to swap to, and it'll save you some headaches and some Sunday afternoons, especially if you're farther drive from the stores where you get them. Some people are pretty convenient. It's not a 5-minute drive. Some people have to drive 30 minutes to get somewhere where they can get some propane. So that would be a big factor too. Any advice on clearing up a cloudy apple brandy? Well, that happens a lot with brandies and stuff because you're generally proofing them down, right? And a lot of times you can get some of those oils in there. Especially like if using deflagmators, you tend to compress some oils in there, and as you proof it down, um, it'll start getting a little cloudy on you. And was it cloudy from the very get-go, or did it get cloudy as you proof it down? That's the first question. If it's cloudy from the get-go, I'd say you might have a little puking going on or something like that. Maybe cut back on your heat. But if it's getting cloudy as you proof it down, check the water that you're using. You don't want to use water that's high pH or has a lot of alkaloids in it, because you get a little bit of saponification going on with the oils. You start mixing that alkaline water with the oils, and it starts to saponify. That's how they make soap, right? Mixing those. So but what happens is those oils are in a suspension in the alcohol. The alcohol is the solvent that's keeping all those oils. You don't see them, right? They're in there, but you just don't see them, right? But once you start proofing it down, the alcohol loses its ability to be a solvent to those oils, and they start dropping out of suspension, right? And you start seeing them, and that's what's happening most of the time. Now, one thing you can clean them up, a lot of people pour it in a Brita filter. You can also just take a glass, put it in a microwave. Now, you don't want to do high proof, ultra high proof or anything like that, but I put it in the microwave and heat it up a little bit, and the cloudiness will go right away, and sometimes it'll come back, sometimes it won't. But just you're reheating those oils, But some people use filters. I tend to just drink it anyway, pour a little, what are you proofing it down with? Oh, smoky blue flame. Yeah, that's a good idea. Everybody hit that like button. Give us a thumbs up and share it with a friend. Get some of your friends involved in this. It's a fun hobby. Yeah, he's a stone's throw man from you guys. Yeah, we'll take care of him. What's up, Jeff? Ain't seen you. Well, I just drank the last little sip. Oh, shit. The last little sip of that. Bloody Butcher Sour Mash. There's it. That's it. That's the last of it. All gone. I was bragging on your tequila tonight. I don't know if you was listening I got to hear it. Good to see you, brother. It's been a while. But that's the last of it. Definitely, man. I want me some of that tequila. I definitely want to talk to you too. I want to see how things been going and if you got that job offer we was talking about. That sounds about right. And if you boil a lot of water, it's going to be a little bit less. But with the 20 gallon, you're going to get a couple. And two, it depends on how far down in your tails you run, right? So if you want to run all the way down into your tails and get those sweet waters and get all the alcohol out for the next run, that you're going to cut those four down to two. You know, I tend to run a little further and deeper. So, yep. So there's lots of factors involved, but always keep it an extra tank. Don't try to cut it and figure, oh, I can get exactly this many because just never. I always I've got 3 or 4 tanks around here. And I'd like to be able to run it off natural gas, and just pipe it directly over to it. Yeah, yeah. You need to get those tails out, and not for drinking this time, but there's a lot of ethanol, a lot of recoverable good alcohol in those tails, and you definitely want to save those and put them in your thumper or add it to the boiler next time you're ready to run. And you can do a little bit less mash that way too. If you got a 10 gallon and you're used to running 8, you can, you got 4 gallons of tails, and you can just do 4 gallons of mash instead of 8. So you can cut how much you have to mash out in half and just add those tails to it, and you'll get as much or more production than you do now. So you'll definitely appreciate it once you start seeing the increased production, because everybody that does it, man, they're like, wow, I can't believe how much I'm getting. And it's because, you're adding that much more ethanol. Your mash is only, 12, 18, somewhere in that range. Uh, Hopefully not up to 18. It's going to be a little hot, but, 12%. So you start adding, 20, 30%, you're going to get a lot more production. And people are, when they start doing that, they're like, wow, I like it. Yes, but we used to add tails to our thumpers, and to increase that production. Oh yeah, definitely. I totally agree. 80 is just like, for me anymore. 80 is just nothing. It's just, I can drink it like water. uh, and I can literally drink it like I'm drinking a Coca-Cola and just sit there and blip, blip, blip. But when you get that 130 barrel proof, man, that's pretty good stuff, man. I've been spoiled by it. Awesome. Now, Cave Daddy, if you use a chainsaw to cut this, make sure that you use a regular skill saw, sawzall, whatever, to cut those ends off, because you got some bar lube. I used it. I did the firewood thing, and I used my white oak, and I'd cut it and char it and do all that. Make my own little staves. Now I just use regular staves from barrels, but back in the old days, I just get some of that firewood, pick through it, and find me some good old white oak in there, and cut it off in pieces. And every once in a while, I notice a little rainbow on the top of my damn, and on the top of my liquor, and I'm like, what the hell? And finally, one day, I had the epiphany. It's like, oh, I'll be damned. That's that fucking bar and chain lube off that fucking wood I've been using. And sure enough, I started cutting those ends off and never had that problem again. So, uh, something to think about. But yeah, it does help a lot. And to char it, you cut your own, and it's good to do it. Season it and put the char on there. And if you wanna, I've got these. Uh, I think this is in the militia and in the DIY Shine and Steel Building page, but if not, I've got this one and another one. This one that toast, 3 hours of toast and what temperature. So this is based on. Let me hide this so you can see it a little better. This is based on 3 hours, so 3 hours at 280 is going to give you some dark, sweet, oaky, sweet flavors. At higher temperatures, it's going to get the toasty vanilla flavors, and even higher, you're going to get, you know, a lot of acrid, meaning it's burnt tasting, and almond. So most people prefer kind of in the middle there, where you get a little bit of oak and vanilla at around 350, you know, and that tends to be where a lot of people like. Some people like it on up here where that line is, that get the vanilla toasty. So somewhere in between, you know, 350 and 400 for 3 hours is now toasting, right, in the oven, not charring with the open flame. So, but yeah, you cut that wood up into blocks and use it. Now, what I do is I just use barrel staves now. I get these used barrel staves. A buddy of mine makes furniture and stuff with it, and I'll just plane it, sand it, and take my damn propane torch to it and torch the shit out of all sides and get it good alligator. I like about a 3 char level on it, and yeah, I use those, and those work real well. Kind of like a spiral, about the same thing, but hell of a lot cheaper. All right, let me put this chat back up there. You like it 140? Oh, proof. I was gonna say char level 140. You ain't gonna get much. You gonna get oak. Yeah, that's about right. 1.5. On mine, I get about 2.5. You know, and that half always pisses you off. And then I run it down. So best keep several around and not try to guess it. Just as soon as it goes out, have another one ready to hook up and go. You know, and just don't even have to hardly slow down. I think that's a pretty good range. I think that's about perfect, honestly. You know, I like going in the barrel at the 110, 20. But some things, you know, like my grappa, you know, I compress the oils into it a lot, and it starts clouding up at 130. You get below 130 and it'll start getting a little bit cloudy on you. So, and that's because of the oils, but those aren't bad tasting oils, and it's not tailsy tasting at all. It's actually very, very good, but it's aged, right? So it's had time to esterify with the acids and the oils working together, you know, and forming some flavors over a period of time. And yeah, if you don't have those in there, you won't develop as strong a flavor. So there's you know, you want to kind of, when you're aging, it's a little bit different than when you're just using right off the tap. When you're coming off the tap and you just want to drink it off the tap, straight off the tap, and that's what you're marketing, selling, and drinking right off the tap, you want to drink hearts, right? Pretty much hearts. That's it. But if you age it, you can sneak a little bit into the low heads, you know, that right next to the hearts, and high tails right next to the hearts, and take a little bit of those and work them in together. And initially, it's not going to be that great, but over time, it actually, it will shock you how much flavor you can get. Talking the other day about, I put low heads in this little cleaner here. And I just got glass cleaner written on it. It's no contact solution thing in it, and I can squirt it, right? And I use it for cleaning my glasses and cleaning my computer screen and everything, keyboard, whatever, kind of disinfect, clean. And I had it in that little plastic thing for a while, and it wasn't high heads. It was kind of mid to low heads. And oh boy, when I first put those in there, they smelled horrible. And man, my ears itching. Man, these headphones itch my ears. Take these damn things off. I'm not listening to anything what I have them on there for. So maybe I like them on so I don't have to hear myself. So I had it in that little thing, and it's like after about maybe 6, 8 months in that thing cleaning. I don't use much to clean my glasses. After 6, 8 months in that thing, I was like, I started smelling the smell of that, and I was like, well, damn, that doesn't smell headsy like it used to anymore. And it almost was smelling good enough to take a little sippy sip, but it was in that plastic, so I didn't want to get any plastic in me. And I was like, man, that actually has some really good smells. And the same thing happens when you get a little bit of those, low heads and some of those high tails, and you start mixing them over time. The acid and the oil kind of estrify and make some flavonoids and polyphenols and lots of different compounds that add a lot of flavor. There's a lot of flavor in those heads. And, I'm not saying make a real headsy liquor that's going to give you a headache or anything like that. Nobody wants that. But just right before the hearts, right? And we've seen the chart that everybody puts up. Let's see. Where is it? I just saw it a minute ago. Here we go. So everybody's seen this, but if you can sneak a little bit now, this one doesn't. So this is a stripping run. Let me get that out of here. That's different. Let me see. It's a little bit different ones. It doesn't have the pure hearts in it. All right, let's see here. Man, one of these days I'm gonna get these files worked out where everything's in the same one. Here we go. Now I tell everybody, don't worry about these temperatures up here because that's kind of a misnomer. If you can fractionally distill, that might be a little bit right. But so as we're looking between jar 7 and 8, generally that's cut off in hearts and tails, right, and the heads. But if you're aging, you can sneak over and get a little bit of jar 7, maybe a little bit of 6, not a lot, but maybe a little bit, maybe half of 6, and go all the way over and get about a little bit about half of 16, right? Or just 15, 7, and add that to your hearts if you're aging to get just a little bit of those extra heads because there's a lot of sweetness. It's not all acetone, and in fact, a lot of your higher volatiles come off early. Your acetone and your acetyl ethyl acetate and acetaldehydes. Those will come off kind of early, and the acetones. So and some of that other stuff's called esters, right? And some of those esters, it's you get some pretty decent flavor out of them. And that's really when it comes into learning to make cuts and learning your cuts. And that's an art. And you have to have a good palate and experience. And as you start doing it, you'll be able to pick out certain notes of those heads that will have pretty good flavor, and that's an art. It's something that takes a lot of skill and learning and trial and error. Right. And again, copper versus stainless, and is it thicker? Does it have a larger bottom, or is it tall and narrow? All these factors. Tall and narrow will use more fuel than a short stubby, short and fat, so the shape of the steel will have an impact. Yeah, and that though 10 pounder would be great just to have always, that way if you get in the middle of the run and you run out, you'll always have that 10 pounder just to slap on there to finish off. So that'd be a great one just to keep full all the time and on hand for an emergency, and just try to keep the other 20s full. And when it runs out, fill it the next day and have it ready, for the next run. And that way you'll always have plenty. I'd say you're not, man. You probably banned in states too, man. Chris the Wild Man. Yeah, definitely want to definitely refill them if you can. There's some places here that you can refill cheaper. Actually, this gas station out for me used to, and they I noticed not too long ago they don't have their tank out there anymore. So I guess they quit dealing with it. But yeah, going electric, is and I'm going electric. I got my SCR and my display coming in. I got my element on my Black Friday deals, so I'll be getting, and I've got a welder, so I'm going to start welding in. I've got myself a plasma cutter for Christmas, a little cheap yes unit, but it'll be nice. It'll save me from having to do the drill bits and all. I can just set me a little template up there and go cut that thing like butter. It'll cut through a beer keg like nothing. It'll do up to inch almost. It's a 65 amp, so that'll be pretty nice to have. After macerating, okay, well that's fine, and if that happens, so what? I mean, it's just protein haze. That's what it is. If after you macerate and you're just getting a little bit of protein haze and fruit haze from it, and I wouldn't care a bit if it had that good flavor and had that bit of cloudiness from that, and I'm that far behind already. But yeah, I wouldn't mind at all. And I'm sorry it takes me so long to get up, but I try to answer these things as they come, and a lot of times I'll. But I hope you're still with us, Chris. And but yeah, I wouldn't mind it all if it had a little bit of cloudiness, if that's what it was. If it wasn't the oils or whatever doing it, it was from macerating. You can kind of expect that, really. When it's not going to stay clear when you start doing that. But heck yeah, and that's where you're going to get a lot of flavor. And sometimes, when you're making apple brandy, don't proof it down with water. Proof it down with some apple juice, right? Keep that flavor. I mean, who cares about the color anymore and a little bit of, clouding? As long as you can pull that flavor, don't proof it down with water. Proof it down with some apple juice. Clear apple juice. Brita, yeah, Brita's. But if you're macerating and you're just steeping, yeah, I wouldn't worry about the cloud. It'll eventually clear up, and you can cold crash that. You can put it in the freezer, and a lot of that cloudiness will drop out or saponify and harden if it is oils, and it'll drop to the bottom, and you can just kind of siphon it off if you want to, or pour it off real slow and carefully, and you can see a little cloudiness at the bottom. I get that in some of my wines and stuff too. It's not big. But yeah, you know, and we were talking about it last week. When you're getting fine wines and stuff, if you get a little bit of cloudy kick up in your wine, it's not the end of the world. And some of your finer wines will do that at the bottom after they've been aged for 10, 15, 50 years, whatever how old it is. You can expect some settlement. Oh, I just make regular. I'll make a neutral and high proof neutral, and I just add peppermint sticks to it. Literally, just drop the peppermint sticks in there and let them dissolve, and it's good. I do that with quite a few things, man. I'll throw some Jolly Ranchers in there, and that green apple Jolly Rancher makes some really good green apple kind of. It's not like an apple brandy at all. It's candied apple kind of flavored, but I like it. Um, so it's a lot of hard candies make good flavoring, for a good neutral, and it has a lot of good flavors, and I like mine to have proof. A lot of people like it where it's just sweet and low proof, and it's like 20 proof. You know, I've seen that a lot lately, and that seems to be the trend. A lot of people like the sweet drinks, and you can't even hardly taste any alcohol in it. To me, fuck it. That's a waste of time, man. I want to taste that alcohol. So, mine will taste sweet and it'll taste candied or whatever, but it's also going to be about 100 proof, right? So, and it's just what you like. I think if you were to do that, you can still pull that good, sweet, strong flavor and keep your proof up. That's what works best. And when you have that high proof to start with, you can do that. But if you get 80 proof and you try to flavor it, you lower the proof as you're flavoring, and it's really hard to do that because you didn't start high enough. But it's whatever you like. But yeah, peppermint sticks, put them right in there, man. And it does get cloudy too, and it's good. Everybody likes it. How do you turn off the alerts for this bull? On Facebook, if you just go to whatever page it is that's doing it, you can turn off notifications. Let me see on the Facebook page. The three dots. Let's see. Yeah, there's a notification, manage notifications. It's like a bell symbol right underneath the share. You can just turn off notifications. And if you don't like the conversation, by all means. Let's see. Okay, so you're not in the malicious. You're not getting it from there. So I'm not sure what page you're on, but whatever group page you're on, you just hit notifications and turn off notifications. Sorry, we are not placing you with our conversation, but yeah, it's not for everybody. Just for people that want to learn. Yeah, buddy. Oh yeah, yeah. And if it gets cloudy from proofing it down, which we were talking about earlier, you just went a little lower on the proof, and oil started dropping out, like we were saying. But then you could add some more high proof back into that, and it will re-dissolve and re-solvent, and break it down again. Yeah. Can't imagine somebody being a member of the one of the groups that I share to and want to learn about shining and don't like the information. I guess I don't know what's their purpose in being on a moonshine page if you don't want to learn how to moonshine and talk about it. Matter of fact, me. I'll find out what group people picked that up from. Let me see here. Where's the page at? I just had that sheet out that had the guy from last week that was. What in the hell? I just had that out here. I just read his name. The Garp guy. Oh well. That's crazy. What the hell? Oh, here we go. Shit. Gene Hagman. That sounds like somebody that was on he on MASH? All right, Gene. Hopefully you can figure it out. Yeah, just look for the three dots on the page and click it, and you'll find a bell, and just turn off notifications. And you can do that on any Facebook page that you're on if you don't want to get the notifications from them. It's aggravating for some people that aren't interested in it. It's no big deal. I mean, if you don't want to listen, that's cool, bro. But most people just scroll on by instead of jumping in and being a dick. But it's all right. Whatever floats your boat. I tell you, let's talk about this. What's y'all's worst run ever? Mine was fairly recent, and it was watermelon. First time I'd ever done watermelon. I never had done a watermelon, and it sucks. I thought it was horrible as a wine, and I did 3 different kinds of watermelon to see if it made a difference, and it did. Um, it was just less sucky. You know, the best one was the least sucky of the 3, but none of them were really all that good. Um, yeah, you're a little bit late, but that's all right. Better late than never, brother. Hope you're having a good Tuesday. Forgot it was Tuesday, not Wednesday. You got an excuse. But so this watermelon was probably, other than runs that I've scorched, right? That I'm not talking about scorched runs would be, of course, be hands down the worst. But runs that were successful but just tasted horrible, hands down, easy guess watermelon, and it's it was just this past summer, you know. And it's I probably won't ever do another watermelon. The wine wasn't good, and the shine was even worse. You know, it was, and a lot of the competitors. You know, I tasted a lot of theirs, and most all the other ones sucked. There was a couple that were okay, decent, but most of them just nothing to write home about for sure. And I hear everybody talk about watermelon crawl and all that good watermelon crawl and all bullshit. It sucks. And I don't think, you know, I didn't do anything wrong, you know, so I just don't think it's a very good. And I tried to infuse, you know, my Jolly Rancher infusions and tried syrups and everything else to try to infuse and add a little bit of flavor and help it. Nothing helped. It sucked. But that was my worst. What about you all? Oh yeah, man, you'd be surprised. Shit, man, they burn walnut down here, man. It's crazy. I'd say probably a little of both if you like the rest of us, be born. A little bit of both. That's the way to be. No problem, brother. Heck yeah, man. I like using walnuts and pecans too. Hell yeah. They definitely. I put those on my root beer, and it definitely has a little element. And I put some on my grappa, and it added. You know, some people liked it and some people didn't. Uh, but yeah, it adds pretty good flavor. Yeah, oak barrel's the way to go. If you got the time, I've got me I've got enough to fill my little five. I've got a 5 gallon barrel, and I'm gonna refine everything and redistill everything and kind of clean it all up and get it ready for that 5. So I'll have me a 5 filled up before long of brandy. So that's going to be interesting. And it's a 5 gallon, so it won't take that long, 6, 8 months. And a 5 would be good. I've also got a couple of 15s that I'm going to fill up with some corn liquor, whiskey. What's going on, Hellbilly? Good to see you, brother. I noticed everybody saying howdy a minute ago. I'm not too far behind now. Let's see, just 20 minutes. But I'm catching up. That's what I was getting ready to say. Did you make it all right? That's awesome, brother. So y'all find your new place and got all settled in. That's great, bro. Today, huh? That's awesome, man. So I look forward to partying with you. 250. You need to find your old barrels. Some old distilleries up there, and once they use those barrels once or twice, they'll get rid of them, and you can scrape the old char off and sand it. Put it on a belt sander or whatever, sand all 4 sides, get it cleaned up. I wouldn't sand the charred side, just you can scrape some of that old char off and retoast it in the oven off that chart for 3 hours at whatever temperature. And then take your torch and get whatever char you want on there. So you put a toast and a char, and it's just like a barrel, it's just like the spirals, but better, and if you're lucky, you might get a little bit of that flavor that used to be in there out, a little bit of that whiskey, some of that good bourbon to go along with it. Yeah, I like my season. I like Kentucky, Tennessee, perfect. Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, in that zone right in the middle. Ohio gets a little cold for me, a little bit of snow, especially up north on that lake effect snow you get. Tennessee's fine, but get down to Georgia and Alabama, it gets a little hot, humid, a whole lot hot, humid. Yeah, buddy, how about you, man? Good to see you. That's a good way to do it, yeah, to get everything warmed up, or just to boil your water with to steep or cook with. Yeah, that's right. Good idea. And like if you're boiling water, to cook with and just steep with, if it goes out, it's not a biggie. You just throw another new tank on there and know that you're going to have to fill that one. But keeping that 10 as an emergency on hand, I would definitely keep that 10-gallon tank just there for that purpose and keep it full. Yeah, and insulation tape. Oh, we talking about refilling propane. I was trying to figure out what y'all were talking about. Track supply, $11 BJ. Yeah, for tank refills. But I'm going to try electric now. I've got my SCR. I've got me a little. I don't know if I took pictures of what I got. I got my SCR and I've got my little nice little panels to show my wattage and all that. And the SCR I got's got a nice little on off switch that included, so I don't have to get a switch separate. And it does up to 5,000 watt. So I think I got a 4,500 watt element, which should be fine for my keg. So I gotta cut me a hole in it, and weld me a little 2-inch ferrule into the side of it, and I'll be ready to rock. Steam is definitely the way to go if you can. Um, Scott, you have to look on the chat here on the screen instead of in the chat. You have to look on the screen. That's because we stream to two different YouTube channels. One is Philbilly's YouTube channel, and the other one's the Moonshine Militia YouTube channel. And most people can only see what uh, what the actual source is. So if you're looking from YouTube, you're not going to see a lot of Facebook comments, and you're on Facebook, you're not going to see YouTube comments. And if you're on one YouTube, not the other, you'll only see those. And a lot of times when you see numbers at the top of the corner of the page of how many people are viewing, that's just from that one source. It's not from all the different sources. We've got 3 different Facebook and 2 different YouTubes. And I used to do Kick, but after last week, I think I've learned to kick that habit. Yeah. Because I mean, I've only seen 1 or 2 genuine people out there and half a dozen or a dozen trolls. So it's just not the crowd for us. It's a bunch of gamers and IRL people that, yeah, they're not like us. They ain't like us, that's for sure. Yeah, what is this proof it down shit, man? 145 off a tap. That's the way you drink it. By God, liver be damned. You can get another one, can't you? It's a good way to do it. Oh no. Oh my. That's what I was afraid I was going to read before I got to the bottom of it. Man, that's a close call. But yeah, man, you can't forget that cabinet. That's why I think everybody that has a still should put at least a 1/2 inch ball valve on there that's easy to open and close, or a gate valve. Put it on that cap, and as soon as you're done, open that thing up, blow off a little steam, and don't, not inside, of course, but that way you just never forget it. There's something much, man. I've seen some $2,000 or $3,000 copper steels just suck right in, man. Thank God it's your thumper and not your steel, huh? But yeah, it shouldn't be too tough to patch up. But yeah, I had a buddy of mine, and actually he's admin on the DIY, and had him a nice, probably, I don't know, 20, 30 gallon copper, nice copper steel. And it was like the first, second, third time he used it, he forgot all about popping that cap and opening up that ear. And next thing you know, it sucked right in like a can, man. And we were helping him blow it out and tell him how to blow it out with air pressure. And then, he had to solder some creases and some busted seams. And he managed to knock it out pretty good. He hammered it, got inside with a little hammer and pecked it out. I guess used a dolly, and he did a pretty good job because that before and after he did pretty good. But yeah, you do that once and it's like you won't forget it. But yeah, I tend to drink a little bit and overfill the jars, which is why I'll put a big stainless stock pot right underneath the drip, and I put my jars inside that. So while I'm sitting there on Facebook, and I've got a few, and I've drained, I'm sitting there watching YouTube videos and all this, not paying attention like I should, And I look up and I'm like, damn, it's over the jar. And if you get got that little catch basin, it ain't all that, no big deal. Just kind of tilt it, pour the rest out, give you a little space top, put the lid on, and start your next jar and pour it back into but yeah, it's easy to do. So I always have something as catch basin. You use a pan, something underneath it to catch. But I should be paying close attention. If if I was on an open flame, I would, like I used to, and if I was on propane, but using the stove and inside in the wintertime, and Just sit, it's so easy sitting inside, all warm and relaxed in a chair. You know, yeah, it's easy to do. But I got to run this apple I've got and get all that out of the way so I can make some room. Yeah, well, it not just your area, but it's because we stream to two different YouTube channels. You see whatever's you'll see what's on your channel. So if you go to Fieldbillies, you'll see the comments from everybody makes from Fieldbillies, or if you're on the Militia YouTube page, you'll see the comments from that page, but maybe not the others, and definitely not the Facebook. So that's why we got it up here on the screen in the bottom corner, so everybody can see the comments cross-platform. And I was really happy that they added that. I've been, what's going on, KP? Good to see, brother. So I've been recommending that to them for a few months, and then they finally added it about maybe 3 weeks ago, Clint. It's not been too long, but yeah, we like that. It's a big plus, so everybody can see what everybody's saying. Because people were asking me, like, whose question are you answering? I don't see anybody asking that question. I guess they thought I was just answering some random, just making shit up or something. Like, no, it was another platform. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, the on-screen comments there in the corner, bottom corner. Now, if you're on a phone, you probably can't see them very well. But if you're on a PC, you can see them pretty well. I'm not gonna block anybody. I mean, it'd probably been better, but I guess he doesn't know how to turn off notifications, and I'd rather somebody just turn off notifications and leave the group. So yeah, I'll help him out. But he could have been you know, a little nicer about it. Well, just shit. Well, you know, sorry, whatever. I try, I try not to let people get under my skin because it just gets my blood pressure up. Probably takes days off my life, and I ain't gonna let somebody have them days. When you get older, it's not years off your life, it's days, we start getting older. Months. You see, I'm months off my life. Yeah, there's always one out there. Yeah, he had to hit that, he got the notification that a video's up. You don't have to click it. You're not forced to click it. But he had to click it, just like a bug drawn to light. And if you don't like what you see, you unclick it, right? No, some people just got to reach that high level of dictum and, and, and run their mouth. They got nothing better to do. Yeah, I got his name written down. I'll figure out what group he's in and have a little chat with their admins, or maybe we'll just put the block on. Yeah, it's good to feed the animals. Or you can sour mash with it until it's not fit for even an animal. A lot of people sour mash. Carpenter, they'll reuse that grain and sour mash and sour mash and sour mash till it's pretty spent. But even then, you can rinse it with a little water. Dump it in some water and kind of rinse some of the alcohol out and feed it to your chickens. And a lot of people do that, and a lot of people throw it out there and have deer and coons and everything else coming in to get it. And, kind of feed them year round. That way, when it gets time to hunting season, they just come to the trough. They got a habit. Yeah, actually, Chris, if you're on Facebook, you can go to DIY Shine and Steel Building, and all these charts will be in the files section right there at the top on the Facebook page. If you open it up, right underneath the name of it, you'll see a group, and then you'll see discussion, featured, members, events, media, and files. Click on files, and there's a search option, so you can. A lot of them aren't named properly. I don't know why. It's like 01997544443.pdf. Now, what the fuck? So I've been trying to go through a lot of those and identify exactly what they are, so you can search the title of the file, right? And then get it. But it's taking some time. But all those are in there and labeled accordingly. But yeah, this one right here actually is called 435D8E 4F, crazy. It's .pdf. And so it'll get renamed toast, or toasting chart .pdf or something like that. But yeah, and they'll be in the file section. So join up and answer the questions. So when you join, that way we'll know that it's not some automated bot that's going to spam us or something like that. So there's a couple simple basic questions. Just answer them so we know it's a human. There's no right or wrong answer. Just make sure you put something in there. And if you want to, just say, on the Distilling DIY, Distilling 101 channel, and you came from there. And we also in the militia, Moonshine Militia on Facebook. You can join that, and it'll be in the file section there as well. So I'm an admin in both, so I post to both of those. Yeah, Bruiser does a good job. And I tell you, Jason Wade Harrell does too. And Tracy, man, there's just so many, and Wayne. I mean, there's so many artisans, man. We've got a lot of brothers out there that are really, stepping up their game. I remember when Bruiser first made his, and everybody when they first made theirs, they were a little on the rough side. But shit, now he's making fine looking stuff. And everybody, their first dozen or two, a lot of them wish, man, I wished I could have those back. I hate those being out there with my name on them. Now that I've spent a little time, I've learned a few things. I wouldn't mind getting those back, so they don't, say, yeah, I got this off Bruiser, or I got this off Tracy, or whoever, and they look at it like, well, that's a little rough around the edges, and it's like, yeah, it's his first one, of course. Yeah, Bruiser's a good guy. But yeah, he does. He's got a lot going on down there, man. He's got a lot going on. But old Phil Billy does great work. Phil and Ian does really good work. Wes does good work. So yeah, we got a lot of good metal workers. A lot of good artisan craftsmen in the groups for sure. I'm not one of them. I'm one of those that can. It looks like one of your first ones, but it'll work. Doesn't leak, as long as it doesn't leak and fall over. I guess it's all you need. Doesn't have to be pretty. Yeah, I'm glad you remember, brother. That's why we got those notifications that they wants to turn off. But I'm surprised he got a notification. I was wondering ask him what page he was looking on, because none of my damn Facebook, I'm on a bunch of them, and none of them notify me. I don't have them turned off. Yeah, you lost your crown. Uh-oh. It's Gene Hackman. It was in MASH, I think. Gene Hackman, not Hagman, but I guess he hags a lot. Well, I ain't gonna dwell on it. If you don't enjoy our conversation and want to learn a little bit and ask some questions, that's good with. Do they? You get up with me later, man, or tomorrow. Let me know what's going on, brother. Yeah, watermelon spoils fast, and I'm telling you, it makes some shitty wine and just some terrible moonshine, man. I hated it. It was the worst ever for me. Yeah, we definitely glad. All newcomers, definitely good to have you with us, brother. Bring any questions you got. Sunday, Saturday, Clint. Saturday and Tuesday. Saturday, Tuesday. Sunday. Come on. Sunday. I don't know if I've never done Sunday. That's Lord's Day. I don't think I run on Sunday, so yeah, love me some peach wine. I tell you, a lot of it, I love wine, man. It's got so much flavor. I definitely prefer wines over brandies, and I've been thinking about kind of combining the two to make right, make a pretty good back sweetened wine, and just add a little brandy to it that might not have had a lot of brandy flavor when it came out, or peach flavor when it came out, and that's what I've been thinking about doing. Fortify my wine with a little brandy. Be damn good with it. Yeah, I definitely want some. Did you infuse, or did it just come straight out as just watermelon? Quack minds need to know. I need to know what you did because mine sucked, and I don't think it was the yeast. It just wasn't good. Was pretty warm though where I had it. It was probably in the 80s when I fermented it, but I didn't use the wine yeast. So maybe I should have used a wine yeast instead of a EC 1118. Well, it's a champagne yeast, but it was a little bit warm for that EC 1118. It was mid to upper 80s, probably. It was July. Well, it was right before farm to bottle, so that was July, August. So it was pretty warm. Probably what it was. It'd probably been a little better if it had been, right at 78 to 80 with that EC 1118 for sure. Yeah, the pecans are good, man. I like using pecans and walnuts both. Yeah, I tell you what, you younger guys out there, man, if you got a little bit of land, start planting some fruit trees and some berry bushes, man. I'm telling you, and some grapevines. You'll be glad you did. When you start getting older, man, you'll have all the free fruit you want. And if you don't harvest it on the ground, you have a lot of game coming in. You'll have turkeys coming in and deer and everything else. It's definitely, yeah. Well, I've not, but I probably will once it gets to a certain point where I'm not getting a lot of flavor out of it. Yeah, I'll pull that top ring off and pull the barrel head off and scrape it out. And if I have to go in there and rechar it, yeah, absolutely I will. Or I'll just spend a little money and do it, get a new barrel. They're not, we getting I got 5 gallon barrels and 15s for right at $100. So not too bad, you know, get a couple uses out of them. Not too bad, especially on the 15s because those 15s I'm gonna let sit a couple of years, right? So it's gonna be a couple of years, and then I use it, so I'll get 4 years out of that $100 barrel. So I'll probably just in 4 years from now, I'll probably just buy another one instead of trying to make it go. Or maybe I'll just put something that I don't need as much of maybe some like tequila or something like that, something a little different that I don't need as hard a char. But you can definitely lay down, scrape it, and dump it, and then retorch it. Yeah, but I don't think it's going to be as good as the original. Or you could, take the barrel head off and just throw some staves in there, like I was talking about, clean up some staves and just throw them in there and use those inside the barrel. Put your head back on and just use those, or scrape the barrel out and do a little bit of both. Experiment with it, man. The more surface area you get, the less time it's going to take, up to a point. But I definitely don't recommend the miner's beard. I don't know if y'all seen that, the moonshiner's beard. Uh, it's basically almost a sawdust, but it's like shavings that are long and charred. And it's like they drop it in and instantly it starts turning color. That's just pure tannins, man. If you want that, just get some wine tannins and put in there. Absolutely. See it. I'm pretty sure you meant taste. I'm sure I'll appreciate the appearance of it, but definitely want to taste it. 13-month, 10-gallon. Awesome. So you have a 10-gallon barrel. 13 months. That's about right for a 10. Yeah. These 15s, I think I'm going to go closer to 2. And on my 5, I'm going to go about 8 to 10. Yeah, not overreached. Sugar maple. All right. Yeah, I just stay away from the red maples, because I get, and it affects different people different ways, but the red oak and some of those maples give me hives. Yeah, I do. I remember many years ago when I first started doing wines and stuff, and come around to Christmas time, uh, take it, and I'm like, yeah, I was real proud. I was, oh, y'all check this wine out I made. And they're like, wine? They knew I made some. Like, what do you mean wine? I'm like, yeah, I've made some wine. It was like a year old, and I was all proud of it and stuff. I had some cherry wine and some dark grape, dark red wine. And I'm like, yeah, this is some wine. And they're like, they were all like, ooh, it's not gonna be pleasant, but we're gonna go ahead and taste a little sip just to, patronize him and, I hate to be mean, so we're gonna be tactful about it. But, my family's brutally honest, kind of like me. They'll be straight up. If you want my opinion, be prepared for an answer you might not like. My family's the same way. And that cherry wine was the first thing they tasted. And like, wow, that's actually pretty good. I'm like, well, actually, thank you. They were really expecting not so good. They're like, wow, you're gonna have to teach me how to do this. I'm like, yeah, I can do that. And then the grapes, it got even better. Like, wow, that's actually pretty damn good, man. Well, thank you. So and then the next Christmas, it's like, did you bring any wine? And can you bring me some more of that plum wine? I want to take that to, some other family or, extended families. My nephews and nieces want to take it to their families and, or their wives and families, in laws. 220 volt. I didn't realize it, but like Europe and a lot of other countries, that's all they have is like 220. They don't even have 110. Their blenders and everything runs off 220. I didn't know that until I started learning more about how to wire these SCRs up, doing a little research on that because it's something I've never done. So I was always a skeptic, but now I'm going in full. I'm going in. I've got my element And hopefully I've got a SCR and a digital readout coming. I put it on my wish list. It was something pretty cheap. So I'll put it in a box and we'll see how it turns out. Yeah, you don't want to fool with that 220. That high amp shit can eat you up. Yeah. Some people just can't handle our chat, man. It's just, but I just can't imagine what that dude has better to do than sit and chat with us anyway, man. I mean, we have a good time in here. Are you just gonna sit there and rub that shit in like that? Man, I can't believe I didn't get I didn't get in on that Eagle Rare antique. I've got a buddy looking though. I've got an in. Got a buddy that has some friend to friend type deals. He's a chef and he's got some friends that work there at Buffalo. So I've got some feelers out for some BTAC action coming. Hopefully we'll see. If they work there, they can get it. So I think employees probably be able to get a little easier about anybody's. And so hopefully we can get a little BTAC action. I told him I didn't want the rye. I said anything other than the rye one. And there's only like 5 of them, so any of those other ones would be fine. I seen the list. He said, "Yeah, I'll ask. I need to follow up on that." Glad you reminded me. Well, I was down in Arkansas not too long ago, Cave Daddy. I was at your I don't know. Did you go to the Music and Moonshine Festival there in Clinton, Arkansas? I was there, bro. Went downtown for Rock the Block. Yeah, it's a good time. I like it down there, man. It reminds me a lot of the people back home, in Eastern Kentucky. It's different hills, hillbillies from different hills. That's all. Yeah, man. You don't. That's sad to see. Yeah, just putting a gate valve, ball valve, just put it in the cap. I can't believe I'm that far behind. Put it in the cap, and it'll definitely save you still. Because they got these vacuum relief valves and all that come out of China, and they're cheap as dirt to put on there. But I don't know if I'd trust that. I don't trust $2,000 steel to $4 part. I don't know. I guess you do the same on an expensive car, but yeah, it's tough. Yeah, that's happened too. Yep. Yeah, the infusion jars. Just put it at the top of the cap, man, on your steel, and just when you're done running, just do it because it those clamps and stuff, your tri clamps and everything, they're still hot as fuck, man. They're 200 degrees. It's as hot as anything, and those things are hotter than hell, to deal with. So instead of getting the gloves out or trying to do it, just open that little valve up, man. They got little rubber handles that doesn't get hot. Definitely the way to go. Yeah, man. Yeah, you run them all the way down into the tails, it can add up. think my longest day running was, I think I did some triple runs and then ran into some tails, and it was a 16 hour day is about the longest I've sat at one time. And I do my reruns. I just pour it right back in on the back set. And I'll take some of it off and just pour it right back on there. It's better to do it that way than to proof it down with water, because you kind of neutralize the flavor, when you proof it down with water to rerun. Yeah, I'm gonna make me some copper infuser jar rigs, but it won't be a jar. Yeah, he wasn't Garf. He's all right. Could have had a little more tact. Yeah. Don't think it's quite bullshit, but whatever. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. But yeah, find a pig farmer. You might just work out a deal with a little hooch and corn for a little bacon. I'm behind again. 20. It seems like I stay 20 minutes behind. I don't want to scroll real fast and miss anything. I agree, Clint. A lot of people doing that, unfortunately. Hell yeah. There have been a few close here recently in Kentucky too. And I'm trying to think of who it is down here in Arkansas. Cooper's in Arkansas, but yeah. I think, well, they're both totally different. JJ, the column is going to make you high proof, less flavorful stuff, and your jar rigs are going to add flavor, and barely increase proof. So, use that column for your rums and for your vodkas and higher proof stuff. And yeah, you can see my eyes start squinting a little bit. I'm starting to get a little tired, man. I saw myself. I'm like, damn, I look stoned. But starting to get a little tired. I'm running down, man. After 3 days of this migraine, and I'm not sleeping much. But yeah, use the 3 foot column for your vodkas and stuff, and those bypasses for your brandies and stuff, and for your corn liquor. Put a little of that cream corn in there, man. It's so good. For sure. Yeah, definitely want to heat up your infusion juice with that, or just change out jars. That's somebody else recommended. And I never really thought of is you don't have to use the same damn jar again. Just take that jar off and have another one with liquid in it ready to go, and just screw it on there, which I thought was I never really thought about it. I don't run jar rigs yet, but I got an inline infuser that I use, and I'm getting ready to do a copper infusers that are similar to jars. I need more surface area than what my inline does, and it gets kind of messy to fill up. So this is going to be a little easier for me, and it's going to be easier for me to retort back into the steel with them. So I'm definitely going to set them up with a little drain in the bottom, so I can go directly out and back into the pot. So all my infusion juice, instead of just dumping it after it's got a little bit of water in there, goes right back into the steel and carry that flavor back in there and help add flavor to the rest of what's coming out. And it's not going to scorch because you're already rolling boiling in there, and you're not, you don't run as much risk as scorching, and you're not going to put anything solid right back in there. So yeah. Oh well, they it's a long story. Me and Roger and Mark used to all do a podcast on Wednesdays and Saturdays. And then Mark split off. He wanted to do his podcast with Cassie, his daughter, and stuff, and go a different route. And that was cool, And Roger and I started doing ours on Wednesdays and Saturdays. We kept those days, and then Roger and I, you know, split up, and he went a different route. And I decided to go the education route, and he does more interview type thing. They bring guests on and have just conversations, different, like a talk show kind of thing, I guess. Different concept, and he wanted to do Wednesdays and Saturdays, and I'm like, well, no, I'm doing Wednesdays and Saturdays. So been a little bit back and forth on that. And so they, you know, I guess they said I just, Phil and Damon and Tom, we all decided that we're going to give them a day, and so we give them Wednesday to do their thing on there, and so we'll do ours on Wednesdays and Tuesdays, or I mean on Saturdays and Tuesdays. So I'm fine with it. Hell, I don't care what day. I just soon, it's Saturday to Tuesday is a couple of days in between, and that's the same from Wednesday to Saturday, a couple of days in between. So it doesn't matter to me, and if they do it on that day, that's fine. And hopefully they'll, I don't know. It's a bit of drama that I don't really care to deal with. So I'm like, fuck it, man. I'll just do it Tuesday. I don't give a shit. I'm not gonna get into all the squabbles and get all butt hurt and fight and argue and fuss about it because I really just don't care enough to. I figure everybody can come here on Tuesday just the same as Wednesday. And if they're not able to, I'm sorry. I wished, it would have been different, but you can always watch it, on at your leisure, which most people do. We'll get anywhere from 30 to 50 people watching it, live, and then there'll be 500 to 1,000 watch it later on during the week, and we get quite a few views on the day, so less than 10% usually. So we'll get less than 50 watching it live, and then we'll get 500 to 1,000 that'll watch it over the course of the week or two from now, and I get all the charts and everything of the viewership. So we got a pretty good viewership. It's one of the most popular ones, that people enjoy watching, and I think it's giving people what they want. That's why I don't care if they do their talk show any day, because I think it's nice to see people talking. I've had a lot of friends on there that they interview and stuff, and a lot of good people, and I want people to be able to watch that. Um, but we can't have them posting that the same day we have one. So so instead of just trying to butt heads, I just decided to take Tuesday. I don't give a shit, and they can post theirs on Wednesdays, and everybody can watch both, and instead of having to pick and choose between the two. So it'll be better for both of us, right? So it's kind of, I guess, like having the two drugstores on a corner next to each other. They compete with each other in half their business, and if they just go up a couple of blocks, they can just get all the business from each. So I think we'll both benefit from it. I'll get more viewers that they won't have to pick and choose between the two. So I'll get more people watching mine, and they'll get more people watching theirs. So I think it'll be mutually beneficial. And it didn't matter to me between Tuesday or Wednesday. And I would have preferred Wednesday, but hands off on Tuesday, so we liked our Tuesday nights together. But it's okay. We'll be fine. But that is just a bunch of drama. And something I don't like getting into all the drama and shit. I'm pretty laid back. It does. I mean, I love it as just to eat, but yeah, I definitely I'm gonna have to check it out. Now, did you say that you infused that? I don't remember seeing. Did you? I'm telling you, man. Put you some peach trees out, some a little bit of everything. Put some different apple trees out. Put you some peach trees out, pears. Telling you, man, for what little as they cost and prune them properly, the first few years especially. But for what little they cost initially, and that's one of the big things too. I've got a problem with is, you know, people talk about hunger and having hungry people in our country, and I hate that. So we've got millions of acres of state and national forests. So why don't we have, people on work release, or they've got people from jails picking up garbage on the side of the road. Why can't they have them out planting trees on a chain gang or whatever, planting trees and planting, fruit bushes and berry bushes. I mean, and so, I think we can start planting a lot more apple trees in the woods and, cherry trees and peach trees and let people go in and pick. It's in the woods and they're our national forest. We can go hunt and you can go harvest and put more nuts out there, nut trees, more walnuts and pecan trees. Hell yeah, and they definitely should be doing that. Wouldn't be very good for the nut and fruit companies, but I guess that's what keeps them from doing it. All these companies, oh, we go bankrupt. Blackberry wine's good, and elderberry with some blackberry. Now, elderberry is a great wine, and it's also really good in combination with other fruit or berries and stuff. So it's very good. A 1 gallon barrel would definitely be less than a year. 1 gallon barrel would probably be maybe 3, 5 months. Yeah, it's a pretty quick turnover. Now, if it depends on the barrel, is if it's a solid wood barrel, then yeah, 3 to 5. If it's one of the stainless barrels with that's a gallon that has just a wood head, then it's gonna take a year or two. But if it's a 1 gallon barrel, this solid wood barrel that's been charred, yeah, it's gonna be months, definitely less than a year. 5 gallon is probably about um, 6 to 8 months. So I would say you're talking a couple of months, a few months. And it's just something once you start aging in it, just, once every couple of weeks, go take it, get your stave in there or your whiskey thief and stick in there and pull you some out and check it and keep an eye on it because if not, you can easily over oak it. And that 1 gallon would probably take a couple few months, maybe four, depending on. And again, it's goes also on the char of the barrel and the toast and what you like. Some people really like that heavy oak, smoky flavor, and some people would prefer a little less with some other notes in there. So yeah, it's couple few. I'd check it after a couple, and then maybe every couple few weeks after that until you get where you want. Yeah, blackberry wine's great, man. Yeah, I agree. I agree. 4 months, yeah, 2 or 3. Start checking it, but I don't think it take much over 3 or 4 for sure. And again, depends on the char and your preference. So it's a you know, you're definitely going to want to have at least 2 or 3 months. That's not an opinion, but I think beyond 3 to 4 months, it's going to be just what you like, just like a char level and a toast level. So it's just going to be, you know, everybody's different. Everybody likes a different level, you know. I got 15 gallons sitting in there. Well, actually, it's probably closer to 13. Yeah, man. I'm going to back sweeten it soon. Actually, yeah, we will. And we'll have to make sure that old Garth isn't around because he was really butthurt that having, we were talking about wine. He's like, what's that have to do with moonshine? And I was like, well, you know, you got to make wine before you make brandy. And, you know, some of the best brandy comes from good wine. So, yeah, we can definitely set a date and do us a wine class, Larry, for sure. And I hope you're still with us. I'm a little bit behind. I'm 20 minutes behind, and but yeah, we can definitely do a little wine class. No, I still got plenty, brother. Anybody want patches? Can let me know. Well, I guess Phil. I don't know if a lot of people didn't see the announcement or not, but Phil, we're gonna do the club thing. So if people want to get patched up, they can get up with me. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we'll do that. Maybe let's pull out the calendar. Maybe not this Saturday, but the 20th. How about that? We'll just plan on the 20th, Saturday the 20th, not this Saturday, but next Saturday. We'll do we'll do a wine class. So on the 20th, because I want to do it on a Saturday, because that's a really good topic and something that we can kind of advertise. Let me make a note of that. I got to make notes for everything. But yeah, we can talk about how we're going to do wine. Yeah, because I really enjoy the wine and making it. It's something that I picked up in the last 10 years or so, and it's you know it's a little more involved than just mashing in and distilling for whiskey. It's considerably you're drinking the mash, right? It's like beer. Beer and wine are much more involved than brandy or whiskey. It's you're drinking the mash. You got to be so damn good at putting, your must or whatever. Yeah, you're drinking the must or the beer or the wort. A lot of different names, same thing. But yeah, you got to do it so well that you're actually drinking, something most distillers, they wouldn't. They when you talk about drinking the mash, they're like, ew. It's like that's beer, dude. Or brandy makers, if you drink any of that must, dude, no, look at that. Yuck. That's wine in there, bro. So, if you're looking at your mash or your must and you're looking like, hey, no way I drink that, you need to work on your mashing skills. That's what we're here for. Um, and sanitary. Some people aren't real sanitary because they're distilling it. So we don't need to be real clean if we're going to be boiling that alcohol, right? And there is some truth to that, but uh, bacteria doesn't taste good. So it's going to affect your brandies and your whiskeys if you get it in there. But it eats their own. You can only say so much before you piss somebody off, and you can't make them do anything. So just kind of figure everybody likes something different. Manny, we get some Northwest. We had some people in from British Columbia, so we get some Northwestern in here. But Marfugal Phil, he gets in there. He's out there on the west coast. Yeah, I love doing the wine. Yeah, we definitely will. Just started your first mash in a year, going in easy with a 20-gallon sugar wash. All right. The little Karo syrup, cool. Yeah, and definitely bring your questions. DC. Uh, that's what we're here for, man. So anything that you want to learn or any questions that you have whatsoever, if your sugar wash crashes, which they tend to do, um, we can help you with that using oyster shells. You can get them at the Tractor Supply or feed store. Those definitely help prevent from pH crashing because sugar washes tend to crash pretty easily. And they ferment pretty quickly too, and as a result, a lot of times you get a little extra acid buildup and the pH drops. But yeah, any questions that you got, we're right here for you, brother. We're going to be here Tuesdays and Saturdays, 8 Eastern. I'm not sure what time zone you're in, but yeah, definitely bring your questions and your stories. If you've got some success stories or some failures, we all can learn from each other. So good to have you with us, brother. Yeah, they do, man. Especially when you have to sample all that time, right? You gotta make the cuts just right. So you gotta have a little sippy sip here and there. And yeah, by the time 14 hours, man, it's like you're almost hung over. You didn't? Well, I missed the one at Fort Smith. That's Cyrus's, isn't it? Yeah, I missed that one. We went to Clinton last year, and I loved it. Loved the people down there, so we went back down there again this year. And good people. I love it down there. A lot of those people just like back home, man. Man, it's a good time. Yeah, hopefully next year, maybe. I don't know. That Clinton was pretty good, but maybe we get over there and see Osiris and shoot Troy. Yeah, I'm going to make some out of copper instead of using the jars. I'm just going to make something similarly sized, and it's going to have a 2 inch ferrule on the top with a spool on top of that and a valve for dropping in some infusion juices and stuff. But it's going to be copper, so you don't have to worry about putting on the grilling gloves and taking off a hot 200-degree jar and putting on another one and worrying about glass breakage and those issues. And just have a little drain in it, maybe a sight glass. It'll be a little fun little project. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna do that. Maybe over the winter, maybe in the spring. But yeah, it won't be long. Sorry, just saw Will's comment. You gotta tell me when the shit like that happens. 20 minutes, but yeah, he's gone. What kind of shit, man? Yeah, you can freeze mash and basically when you freeze it, it helps it settle out quicker. A lot of times when their mash is done and people want to, don't want to wait for it to settle out and get clear up pretty well, they do what's called cold crashing, and you can put your mash out there and cold will make it. Now you don't want it to freeze. That's a different thing. Now that's called freeze distillation. So if you make like a wine or a mash or something like that, you can rack the clears off, let it settle, rack the clears off, and then put that in something, a bucket, and take it outside and let it sit outside and freeze. And you can pull the ice out because the only thing freezing is the water, right? And it's going to leave what? The alcohol behind. So you can increase your proof, not as much as you would with a regular distillation, but you can double your proof pretty easily. So you can start out with like a 20% wine or something, 40 proof wine or 30 proof wine that's real high, and double it. So they call it jacking. It's the same thing as liquid is freeze distillation. A lot of people call it jacking. A lot of people do that with apple wine, make what's called apple jack. Now I will tell you, it definitely increases the proof, but you also have all the heads, all the foreshots, all the tails, and everything still in there. So it will make for a mean ass hangover if you drink too much of it. So yeah, you can do it, but it'll be a bad hangover if you drink too much. So be careful drinking that apple jack and another peach jack or whatever you know. But yeah, it can give you a boomer. Awesome. Yes, sir. And what you want to do is earlier, if you missed, somebody got on here and was asking, so I kind of went from the beginning to end. And if you missed that, just when we're done with it, start over again and maybe go about maybe 20-30 minutes in. So I maybe not even that much, about 20 minutes in. I broke it down, right? So how to cook your corn and steep it and getting your corn. And when it gets cooled down to about 150, that's when you want to throw that milled wheat in and let it sit for a while until it cools down to 100. And then of course you can uh, check, make sure you got good conversions, and start thinking about putting your yeast in. I guess if it's a bread yeast, oh, you got some corn, bread flour, and some milled wheat. Okay, yeah. So depending on the yeast, maybe 90 degrees, 95. Depending on if it's a bread yeast, yeah, 90, 95 is fine. If it's a wine yeast, a little bit cooler, in the mid 80s, I guess, starting out. But yeah, sounds awesome. Percentages, it's I will say, we were talking earlier about files. Somebody the other day asked me about percentages and stuff, and I've got a PDF. Let me see if I can add PDFs to this. I can. Let's see. Here we go. All right. So I don't know if y'all can see that. Let me take the chat thing down. So if you want to, you can see that this has percentages here of different grains, and it's different alcohols here. And it tells you how much percent of each different grain that goes into it. So you can kind of get an idea of different ones. There's like a couple few pages here of it, 3 pages. That is on the DIY Shine and Steel Building page and in the Moonshine Militia page files. And it's called, let me see, Mash Dash Bills 2.0.2. And it shows all the different popular liquor brands on the market and basically what percentages of each they have. I will say if you're using, exogenous enzymes, so if you're using the liquid high temp amylase and your glucoamylase at the end, and you're not really relying on malts, yeah, you can throw all those in at about 150 and as it's cooling, and just let it work and cool. Kind of hold that 150 for a while if you can, so you can kind of cook and get some of the starches out of those wheats and out of the flour. And what amylase is still a little bit active, and the glucose will definitely help break some of it down, and you'll get some a little extra out of that. But yeah, I would probably go with like maybe a 75, 15, 10 or something like that. 75 corn, 15 wheat, 10 with the bread flour, you know. Now I will say the bread flour is going to make it kind of milky, and it's a little harder to get out, but it'll be fine. Yeah, it'll be all right. Yeah. Cornbread flour. Okay. All right. So cornbread flour, cornmeal, nice cornmeal is what we call it. Just cornmeal and some milled wheat. Good. Yeah. Just go with about 75% cornmeal and about 25 wheat, and that'll be good. 80-20 is fine. You know, somewhere in those ranges will be pretty good. But yeah, it should work out. It should work out fine. But just cook it, just like we talked about earlier. You cook the cornmeal just like you cook cracked corn or any other thing. You know, cook it, steep it. You know, for 90 minutes to 2 hours at 185, 90 degrees, and get you some boiling water going, and use about 2.5 pounds of combined. So once you figure out your ratios, you know, if you're going to do 10 pounds, you'll do 7.5 pounds of the corn and 2.5 pounds of the wheat, and that'll give you a pretty good ratio, right? And then just take those, and so if you got 10, that means you're going to use what, 4 gallons of water to go with that. So, or if you want to step that up, it's 2.5 pounds of grain combined per gallon of water. So you can just kind of go with that, cook that, or steep it for 90 minutes to a couple hours, then add your amylase and start converting those starches. Use that high temp amylase liquid and let it cool. And if you don't want to do that, you could do the sugar route, but I definitely don't recommend that. I would definitely recommend trying to convert those starches that are in those in your grains, and let it get cool, and then add your glucose there at the end. But early on, I did a breakdown. I do that maybe once every 4 or 5 episodes. Just kind of go through a quick, how to do it for the beginners, because we got a lot of people that listen that don't ask questions, but they're wanting to learn, but they want to kind of remain anonymous. So I see Clint already said 75-25, right? 75-25, 80-20 is fine. But yeah, so at the beginning, if you want to watch it, rewind it and watch it, or after we end it, start it and go about 20 minutes in. I break it down step for step for step, and if I was so far behind, I'd do it again, but I'm way behind as it is, so I got to move on. But check it out, and if you have any questions, come back. We're here on Tuesdays and Saturdays, and we're here to answer questions, hang out, chat, and tell us how it works out. Yeah, malted barley's good. Barley adds a good flavor. Did they? What's going on, Scooby? Good to have you with us, man. Yeah. Let me check that message real quick. I might have somebody saying crazy stuff. Told Clint if we get people in there saying crazy shit to let me know, and that might have been what my message was, and it probably was. Oh yeah, put the comments back up. Thank you. All right. But yeah, I told Clint anytime somebody comes in and says stupid shit to make sure he sends me a message. Yeah, we may do us a shit show, Scooby. It's what we call it. Get everybody on just to sit and chat. One, maybe we'll do a special edition for. Let's see, when is Christmas? What day is that? So maybe the 27th or Tuesday, 23rd or something close to Christmas. We might just maybe for New Year's. Let's see what Saturday the 3rd or Tuesday the 30th. Yeah, maybe one day we'll put a link out there and everybody can kind of jump on and get to know each other and just kind of get away from chatting about everything and just have a little chat. Yeah, it sounds good, brother. Now, do you ever use any oats? I tell you, I like throwing a little bit of oats in mine. Not necessarily enough to really call it a percentage, maybe five, but just for the mouthfeel and the softness and I like having a little bit of oats in it. But I like not a high rye. I'm not a big on rye. I don't mind a little bit in there, like a 5 or 10% is fine. Uh, but I love the wheat. Yeah. What's going on, Frank? Good to have you with us, brother. I saw you back in the militia. What happened? Did somebody accidentally ban you, or did you accidentally leave? I noticed that you came back in. I'm like, hell, Frank's been here forever. What the shit? It's mistakes happen. I've fallen asleep on the damn phone before and left groups, and I might have banned a few people doing the same. Sitting there on the phone watching something, and the next thing I know, the damn thing's laying on my face and it's beeping. So it's I don't know. Y'all ever lay in bed looking at your damn phone, and the next thing you know, it's hitting you in the damn nose? That happened, y'all? Shit, that's happened more times than I care to tell. Yeah, I like cold crashing, to help them quickly settle the mash out. If it's a milky one, help settle it out. Yeah, the bad mo barrels or the sand mows. Hell yeah, man. Shit, yeah, they just load you down with apples out there, man. Yep. Yeah, yeah. You don't want to over oak. So it's definitely good, especially if it's a new barrel. These have been used once, so uh, they're going to take a little bit longer. Yeah, we'll have this little wine class. Yeah, same way, Chris. If turns out wine, it's good. It'll get bottled. But if it turns out it's not that good, it goes in the pot. So there we go. We got some Northwesterns there. See, well, that's good. We need more beer brewers, man, because you'll take to this like a duck to water if you got some beer brewing experience. Now you will experience some differences. Uh, whereas beer makers step mash up in temperatures, so they start low and step mash up. Whereas we start with corn at the high end and go back, but you can do both, right? So when I was talking earlier about adding all the other grains at 150, you can start with your corn at the right ratios, 2.5 pounds of corn per gallon of water, and you can start with your beers and barleys on the other end and step mash those up. And then when those get ready and they're ready for their saccharification rest, just past the protein rest and they're ready for the yeah, when I get drinking, man, I can't say that very well. Saccharification rest, sacrification rest. Then you can combine them, right? And then just let it cool from there. But you don't have to worry about the haze as much. So, you don't have to chill it and get it cool real quick and get it past some of these phases. So that's not an issue because we don't care if it gets hazy because we're just distilling it anyway. So, you don't have to worry about that. And you don't use the hops, or you don't want that oily hop in there. But yeah, other than that, it's definitely uh, yeah, yeah. I'm always behind. It's 10:05 and it's 10. I'm always about 20 minutes behind, but we got Clint here to help that. Um, Stopping in to make interested in making some homemade vinegar. 50/50 regards, right? Okay. Acidity levels, making sure your acidity levels are high. Uh, Keep the temperature kind of down. Uh, those are and it's tough because of the oxygen. You got to have some kind of oxidation. I guess you're introducing a little bit of mother of vinegar in with it to get it started, instead of just waiting for a fruit fly to bring some acetobacters, which is a long, slow process, but it will happen. But yeah, wine vinegar is great. A lot of people, oh, I can't believe my wine turned to vinegar. I'm going to pour it out. Why? I mean, it's great for cooking. So, don't pour it out. Just use it for something different. Don't drink it straight. Use it for making, cooking. But yeah, that's what I do. When life hands you lemons, you make lemonade. When your wine turns to vinegar, you use it to cook your steaks and fish in and other things. Yeah, keeping the acidity levels right, and more acidic will definitely decrease some of your bacterial um, growth. But I've never really done a lot intentionally, for it. And I try to keep as much vinegar out of it as I can because I don't want like fruit flies, which I get all, we all get those if we do, a lot of brandies and fruits. We all have to deal with those. I've got airlocks full of them. But I try not to do a lot of vinegar type stuff because I don't want those fruit flies getting into that and just you know getting in the wines and kind of spoiling things. But I guess oxygen you're going to need, which also increases your bacterial growth. But keeping the temperature cooler and keeping it acidic enough to discourage other bacteria that because vinegar doesn't mind the acidity levels like most other bacteria will. So, but I'll do some reading up on it and know a little bit more the next time because I've really never spent time to make vinegar. But when my wine turns to vinegar, I'll use it for cooking, right? But I've never really intended to do it that way. But I've had some do that for sure. And maybe Clint knows a little bit more about that. I've not made the vinegar, but if it gets that way, I'll for sure use it. Oh, that was so nice of Gene to leave us a big sour face on here. Thanks, Gene. That's funny, isn't it? Oh my goodness. Wow. That's a grown ass man doing that stupid shit too. I'm assuming it is. I don't know. Yeah. Are you introducing mother of vinegar? I mean, are you starting with some mother of vinegar, or are you just trying to have it turn to that? Because you could probably add some acetic acid and maybe some mother of vinegar and definitely help it along. Lactose. Who's asking about lactose? I didn't see. I didn't see the lacto question. Anyway, lactobacillus is fine. It's something that adds some creamy, soft notes to your distillate, and it's something that will carry over in distillation. Um, it's not something that you want early on in your distillation because it will compete with the yeast for the sugar because it feeds on the sugars as well. So, but yeah, it's good if you can control it and have it late. A lot of people consider it a curse because you have to sterilize everything. Once you start getting them, they'll come back unless you clean everything up really well. Uh, in the wine industry, it's something that's kind of new. They're trying to introduce lacto in some wines. In the past, it's always been taboo and something that you just was unheard of. But now, in the last few years, it's something that, well, it's been probably a few, but they're starting to do lacto in wine. It's just, I don't know. I've not tried it. I can't imagine it, but they're, yeah, I mean, and they're doing it for wines, which is crazy to me. It's just something that you definitely did not want in the past, but now I guess they found a way to make it okay, or maybe just, I mean, some people just don't mind. I don't know. Yeah, it's lactobacillus. It's a lactic acid, basically, and it's a product of fermentation. It's common in the fermentation process. A lot of times, though, if you don't cook certain things, even fruits and some grains, you can get it from both. But if you cook anything above 160, it can will definitely most kill all the lacto off. But if you add ingredients that have lacto infection at a temperature less than that, it can start forming. A lot of people will save it in a jar and skim it off and save it in a jar and introduce it into fermentations late. That way you start off with a 106070 gravity and you get down to a 1020 or 10110 and add the lacto at the end and let it finish off the rest or remaining of the sugar. And a lot of people do that, and that way you get the lacto, but you also get plenty of alcohol, made. If you get that lacto early, it's competing with, like I said, with the yeast for the sugars, so you may not get as much alcohol, um, you know, ABV in your mash that you'd want. But yeah, it can add a good flavor, and but it can also make some things bad. So, I guess that dude said more than just that one comment because I banned him and removed several of his comments. So let's see. Let me write that name down too. Just a shit list here. And the Q4Y, I guess that's supposed to spell gay. So yeah, Well, I mean, some people like the creamy, of the lacto. But it's something that you definitely don't want early on, and it's something most people don't want to deal with because it requires, you have to sanitize everything every time you use it, and you have to really, really clean things well, or else it'll keep coming back. And sometimes it's not preferable, especially in your winemaking. I don't know about these wines with lacto. It sounds pretty gross to me, but everybody's each their own. And it's definitely something I wouldn't want in a sour mash. I definitely wouldn't want a lacto in a sour mash because that's going to make it tough. That's going to make it pretty tough to do. Yeah, Mike, I'll read up on it. I'll have a little bit more. I do know that, if you have mother of vinegar, it will speed up the process. And I know there are places that you can get technically mother of vinegar, but I think basically if you just start with some vinegar, add some vinegar to that, it's going to, give you a good start. And you can probably finish with that and then just increase the, you know, uh, acetic acid. Basically, a vinegar is so. Yeah, I think it'd be pretty cool to make your own vinegar. Yeah, actually, applejacking is federally considered distilling. Can you believe that crazy shit? So no steel involved, no heating, no nothing. You just take wine, put it in a bucket, put it outside, pull the ice out, and all of a sudden you've distilled. So it's not about, when you make that law, it's not about the safety, because there's no exploding, freezing buckets, right? So it's crazy. Yeah, but yeah, it could give you some mean ass hangovers. That's for sure. Yeah, Mike, I'll read more about the vinegar, and I can't go in depth because I just don't have that much knowledge. I know a little bit about it, and but if you can introduce the acetic acid and or acetobacteria, mother of vinegar, but it will form like a mass in there. It'll be a gelatinous mass. It'll look like almost like a jellyfish, right? Um, and kind of like they do with the Scoobies in the distilled, or I'm sorry, the tea, the fermented tea that they're making these days, the kombucha. So that's kind of like a Scooby in your kombucha that's got like a little bacterial thing. So your mother vinegar looks a little bit like the Scooby, and it's just a mass of bacteria. And I guess that's uh, what it starts with, So that's called mother of vinegar. And pretty interesting. Like, it looks like a jellyfish in there. So it's good. Yeah, I mean, the level of methanol is not bad. I mean, it's it's just going to give you hangovers because it's got a lot of heads in it. When you drink wine, you're getting the methanol the same because it's not getting distilled out, right? So, that's why drinking a lot of wine will give you a hangover as well, because there's lots of heads in it. Now, not confusing, heads with, four shots, but some people just combine the two, right? But methanol um, it's something that really needs to be concentrated before it's a huge issue. If you if you were to fractionally distill and take off concentrated 4 shots, then yeah, that methanol that could probably be at a percentage that's going to cause issues. If you rerun that and add it and rerun it and add it again and keep taking off and building up 4 shots, which a lot of third world countries have done and had major problems and issues just out of stupidity and greed from rerunning it, and just take it off each time, but throw it in the next one. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger until finally it consumes your run, right? Because you're throwing just heads in with a little bit of mash, and you're throwing a huge concentration of heads and 4 shots methanol in with a low ABV of everything else. You distill it off, and then you continue to keep taking off these heads and fours, and keep adding them back. They concentrate, and then you can run into some major problems, especially with brandy making. But it's happened. But if you just do a mash, you distill it and you get rid of that, and you only rerun the tails, then you run a little bit less risk of it. But with brandy, it's probably not a good idea to run those tails over and over and over again, because you still have some methanol in those tails, and if you continue to rerun those, you can do the same, by concentrating it, but a lot less issue. But still something to consider, and why a lot of people don't, do a lot of rerunning and saving of tails of brandy like they would a grain run. Yeah, a lot of good questions. What's going on, Gary? You can see, brother, I'm behind as usual. Fucking 30 minutes almost now. I'm going to crank through here. Yeah, we can all just sit around, drink, and talk. I just mean shit show format by just bringing everybody in, letting everybody kind of hang out instead of doing it like this. I like keeping it like this. I'm going to, because like on the shit show, it tends to everybody be talking at the same time, and it's really hard to understand. But yeah, we'll definitely do that and have some fun and have just yeah, and to the those hops will leave some oils, trace oils in your steel, a little skunky and a little hard to clean. But it yeah, it's not something that you want and something you're going to distill for sure. Hell yeah. Let's see what I got down. I don't have nothing down there to drink. I drink all my good stuff. That's what I like to drink. One of my favorites, but I'm out of that too. Hold on a minute. I'm gonna have to go in here and get me a proof. I think I got some proof down. This is my last quart of grappa that's been sitting in there aging. This is getting close to 3 years old now. Man, that is so fucking good. Wow. That's awesome, man. I mean, I have to say it. That's some of the best shit I've ever made right there. Everybody loves it and tastes it. It's high proof. It's like 130, 135. But you would never tell it by drinking it. And boy, you can feel it going all the way down. It's sweet, got a unique sweetness to it. If it just didn't take so damn long to make that, I could make a fortune on that shit. But it just takes too much. There's too much time involved in it. You know, I make a white wine to begin with and age it to maturity, a good white wine, and then after about a year and a few months, I distill it and then let it jar age on on a couple of nuts. I put two in there just for the joke. I usually put a little bit more. There's a couple of Santa's nuts right there. See, but that's walnuts I was talking about earlier. But we joke about it. Yeah, I put my nuts in it. Put a couple of my nuts in there. But my God, that's so good. It's gotten better. That's some liquid gold right there, man. That is really good. All right, brother. I'm sorry that I'm behind in 20 minutes and you probably already gone. Hopefully we'll see you next, well, Saturday and next Tuesday. It's good to see new people come in, especially beer makers. So that's good. Got some experience coming in. Yeah, I've made mine not by accident too. You know, it's just my wine turned that way, leaving it sitting out, and you know, mine's never turned to. Well, I think I did have one turned to vinegar while I was actually aging it in secondary fermentation, but most of the others have been just in jars or bottles, wine bottles that I've drank about half of it and then left it sitting out and it'll get that way, or leave it in the refrigerator barely capped, and it'll once it gets some oxygen in it. But all right, brother, it's good seeing you. Thanks for joining in. We'll be here on Tuesdays and Saturdays. And again, I'm behind, probably gone by now. I'm only 15 minutes by now. I'm trying to go fast. Yeah, you better watch out, brother. And it could be something, it could be, somebody on the loose or them looking for poachers. It's hard to say, brother, but yeah, it could be a good thing that they're there. It could be protecting you, or it could be a bad thing for them. They might be watching you. So I've had one, and I've had quite a few bottles turn that way, just leaving them out. Yeah, I got a shit list. They getting fucking cold for Christmas. Yeah, that's funny as hell, isn't it? That's right. Let them little gnats in, man. That little Acetobacter carrying little fuckers, man. They'll fuck shit up in a heartbeat, man. That little fruit flies, and that's where they pick it up off decaying fruit. So, I mean, that's one way, of starting to get vinegar. Just let the fruit decay, and start breaking down, because that's where those little fruit flies get it. They get it off the fruit and they pack it around on their little legs, I guess, like a bee carrying pollen. Well, you can use a glass still, but Why? Is because it can be broken easily. The temperature changes when you shut the still off, and if you were out, distilling and you had it hot and started raining, it would crack and explode probably. So there are some risks with it. Uh, Borosilicate glass is good. That's what our columns are made with. So I mean, but yeah, I mean, in the chemistry lab, yeah, I've distilled in the chemistry lab using beakers and rubber stoppers and glass tubing and all that, and condensers. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But it's just not as practical, right? And you have to worry about bumping it, breaking it. Some liquid getting on it, it getting cold and cracking. Somebody not letting it cool enough before they added the next mash in. There's just so many little things that can happen. I got me a glass column. It's awesome, man. I like Maker's Mark. That's a weeded whiskey. It's got some sweetness to it. I got a collection of them. They here in Kentucky they make Maker's Mark, and for the UK basketball and Louisville, a lot of times they'll dip it in the blue wax and the red wax for each team, and make some special bottles. Also, some special bottles for Keeneland. We have a lot of horse racing here. Of course, we're horse capital of the world for horse racing, so they do a lot for the horse industry as well. So I've got quite a few Maker's Mark collector bottles. But yeah, that's good stuff. I like the cast strength type stuff, barrel strength stuff for sure. Jeff likes it too, don't you, Jeff? Yeah, that's what I've got right now. I just got a glass column with plates. Oh man, this right here is gold, brother. This right here is liquid freaking gold. That's the best. I'm telling you, man, this might be one of the best tasting. That's what Ian said. Ian Lowe, Big Easy. He tasted that and he said, I think that's the best thing I've ever drank in my life. And it's, oh my God, this is definitely the nectar of the gods. And I didn't do it traditional grappa. This is made with grape skins and stems. This is made with the grape. God damn, it's so good though. I want everybody to try it, but I only have that much left. Mm, wow. Just that, man, the sweetness of that, very unique. Damn, it's so good. Yeah, you don't have to tell me twice when I'm drinking this shit, man. It's like, holy moly, it's gotten better since I drank it the last time. I definitely have to save a little bit of that for Ian, man. He loves that shit. I do too, man. That's probably the best thing I've about the best thing I've drank too that didn't come out of a barrel for sure. But yeah, this isn't a traditional grappa. It's made it's real wine. It's not the skins and the stems. It's like marijuana. If you want to smoke the seeds and the stems, that's about what a grappa is compared to this. It's just trash. I, I did both. I took the wine, the pressings, and did the wine into one, and then I took all the and I was generous, so I had quite a bit of the grape pulp and everything left. Took the skins and the stems and made a traditional grappa. Night and fucking day. It's trash. Grappa's trash, but this stuff's good. Well, you probably had a traditional grappa that was made with the skins and the stems, and it's trash. It sucks. You wouldn't you wouldn't say that about this, man. You'd be like, wow, that's nothing like what I had in Italy. This is this is the best grappa out there. This is the king of grappa right there, man. It's just sorry, Brian. Brian Battle's a great guy, and I know his proper grappa and his story, and I've tried his, and I've given him a little bit of mine. I gave him a jar of mine, and but yeah, this would be expensive on the shelf though. This, as long as it took to make this, it's like 3 years old. So, it took a year and a few months to make the wine and mature it. And then I distilled it and jar aged it for, well, up until Beattyville, not this past year, but last year. So it was a year old then. So it's two at that point in time. And then that's been a year in maybe a year and a half since. So that's about 3.25, 3.5 year old. It's unbelievable. Oh my God, it's so good. Right, it can, but what happens is, King, and I've got a borosilicate. I just got a column, a nice big 4-inch column with multiple plates and glass, borosilicate glass. And it's great. That's what, the canning jars and stuff are made of too. It's kind of a tempered glass, but um, you got to be real careful with it, and it's a lot harder to make the weight and the size involved with having a big, huge steel in a commercial setting, or it would just be it'd be a big issue. It'd just be tough, and you'd always have to worry about breaking it, whereas wouldn't have the durability as like an old copper steel. But it's great in the science lab, and it's clean, very clean. I've made liquor with beakers and in the lab, and it's very clean and nice, but not practical on a large scale. Damn, this is so good, man. I wish I could just give y'all a shot of this for everybody. 130 proof, man. It's just tastes like 100. And it did that before, but I think it's even smoother now. Yeah, it's fantastic, man. So Jeff, when you come up, you bring me some of that tequila, and I give you a little sippy sip of that. Can't give you a lot because that's the last quart in existence in the world right there. Let's see, Ian. I doubt. Yeah, I doubt Ian has any left. He drank that shit up. Yes, you can. Yeah, you can make some green dragon. And actually, it was, poor man's grappa. That's traditionally that's what grappa is in Italy. And I don't want to sound elitist or anything like that, but the workers at the wineries, they can afford a lot of the wines and stuff like that. So, and there was a lot of leftover pressings, right? And they probably weren't as efficient in the pressings. I'm sure there's quite a bit of pulp and stuff left too. So I'm sure it was a lot better than what I had, because all I had was basically skins and stems, and it sucked. But if they had a little bit of pulp and a little bit of the grape juice, to go with it, it was. But the winery would give the workers all this leftover pumice, all they wanted to take home, because it was a byproduct, right? It was waste after that. So all these people, they'd take it home and they would add some sugar to it, ferment it, and distill it, make a grappa, which is basically a grape flavored sugar shine, or a stem flavored sugar shine, or a grape skin flavored pumice bullshit shine. It's horrible. But if you're wanting to make you some liquor, it beats just a plain old sugar shine, right? It is better than just plain sugar shine, and that's what they did. But yeah, you can definitely make you some cannabis infused shine. But you really want to make a vodka, and you want it to be as high proof as you can. You don't want any, the more water in there, the greener it turns. So if you wanted it to be a true amber color, you'd have to have some really high proof, very low water content distillate, which would mean you want 190 plus proof, because any 194, 100 as close as you can get to pure alcohol, so you don't get a lot of green chlorophyll, because once that uh, once that vegetal matter mixes with water, it turns green. But if it's just the alcohol leaching out the terpenes and all the resins and oils, then it's an amber. So you definitely want really, really super high proof. And I'm caught up at 11 o'clock. I just scrolled down and I'm at 11 o'clock and it's time to say goodnight. But it's been good. It's been good. It's been a good Tuesday, a little bit of change. The change isn't always bad. I mean, Wednesday, Tuesday, it don't matter. I'm glad that people will be able to watch mine and theirs. I like their show. I like, have a lot of people that they have on there are friends of mine, and I don't like them not being able to post their shit on the Moonshine Militia page just because it's on Wednesdays and we have to pick one or the other. And this was our sanctioned podcast, so it was this one, and they'd still try to force theirs on there, and it'd have to get deleted because they weren't listening to the damn rules. I had a problem with, and I tried to put it on post approval. That way, after my show, I could go in and allow theirs, so they could have their show on the page too. I didn't like deleting it, but so now we can have both. It's not a big deal for me. If they just, if we could talked about it, we could have worked it out a long time ago before people got all pissy and took issue with it. But hey, glass is great, and they make ceramic. Yeah, there's a lot of I've seen a lot of steels made with fired up ceramic steels, and that works perfectly fine. It's probably a lot better than the oil barrels and shit I saw, them making moonshine with back in the day, and car radiators like Chris was talking about earlier, for condensers and shit. There was, people say, oh, the shine was better back in the day. No, it was not. Not the shit that came out of the Appalachian Mountains was not any better, and it wasn't all popcorn sutton, it wasn't all copper. It was not that at all. If you were lucky, you had a sheet metal submarine pot, which was sheet metal, not stainless or copper, but it was just sheet metal, and then you had to deal with rust and metal ions and all that. But a lot of it was oil drums. They'd clean the oil out of it, they'd scrub it out, and then they'd get their stick welders and weld them a little cap on there and make a steel. I can show you picture after picture of, let me show you here, of what we used to see and have real quickly before I go, because a lot of people have the impression that it was all good. No, those are oil drums. The holes you see in that was done by an axe by a revenue man. This was welded oil drums that were welded together to make a bigger pot. This probably was a 200 gallon, or that's 55 gallon, 150 probably. And they probably run at least 125 gallons in that pot. There's 355-gallon drums welded together there, 350s at least, and they couldn't fill them all the way up. So I'd say at least 125, 30 gallons at a time came out of that pot right there. All right. Let's see here what else we got. Here's another one. This is an oil drum that had literally oil in it. You can see where the revenuers took care of that. Let's see. There's another one. This was more like a water heater. This was actually carbon steel and it didn't have the oil in it. It was more like a steam unit for boiling to heat up radiators in a building or a home. Well, not a home, but probably a commercial building. And that was a boiler. You could tell it's a little bit thicker steel. So instead of using the old axe on that, they put in a little stick of dynamite and blew that son bitch open. to 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 make it useless again. So yeah, when we talk about yeah, this is what old moonshine's made from. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of these pots sitting around. You know, these are all oil drums, oil drums, oil drums. And if they weren't mashing in them, they were distilling in them, right? They're everywhere in Eastern Kentucky and in the mountains of Kentucky, man. There's a couple guys, they're proud, man. They're distilling out of these. Yeah. So yeah, it wasn't all peachy peach back in the days. Now that's an old copper type steel. I ain't gonna knock it. But yeah, it wasn't all good back in the days. So yeah, I've actually got some pictures somewhere of car radiators being used for condensers, and it's just a nightmare. You know, old bathtubs being used to cook mash in. You know, they'd have an old cast iron bathtub, porcelain type bathtub with a fire underneath it, cooking cooking mash. Yeah, man, it's crazy. But yeah, I've seen the clay Bocacom. Yeah, yeah, and they it's pretty interesting. Some of this old stuff. Yep, I've seen the videos. Yeah, our stainless steel's pretty good after looking at all that, isn't it? Yeah, they would have used a lot more stainless back in the day, but they didn't have it, you know, and it was very expensive if you did, and you had to have a welder, you know, to put it together. Whereas copper was easy to hammer out and make shape any way you wanted to, and solder together. So yeah, it was considerably better. Sure, brother, no problem. Who do I get in touch with to start a small batch of bourbon or American single malt aged whiskey? I have a business plan and the perfect one of a kind of whiskey brand business name. Man, if you're wanting to craft some liquor, you come to the right place. As far as the business plan, I would just go talk to some local distilleries. You'd be surprised, and maybe not tell them you're local and that you're going to be competition. So maybe say, you know, I'm here on vacation, and you know, we decided to stop by the distillery here and do a little tour if y'all have them. And you know, I just want to pick your brain. Well, you know, I was thinking about doing that back in Vermont or wherever, you know, and pick their brain, or you know, come to Kentucky and start asking them craft distillers questions and stuff. But I will say, it's you can have the best distillate and no business plan, and you won't make a penny. And you can have some mediocre distillate and understand the business and market the shit out of it and make a fortune. So it when it comes to business, it's actually more business than product. Um, There's a lot of shitty liquor out there that sells for high dollar, and people buy the shit out of it. And I don't understand why, but they do. Um, yeah, but there's the barrel, the carbon steel puts off ions. It's like using galvanized pipe. You know, you just can't do that because it puts off ions that actually do have a bad impact on your body and your organs and stuff, right? So it's not just foreshots that make you go blind and give you health problems. It's you know, sometimes these metal ions getting off into it. You know, we understand now about aluminum ions and what it does to our mental health, and now it's causing a lot of I forget what they call it. Yeah, Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. That was a joke, not a bad one, because I'm probably eating up with it now. You know, yeah, 10 years from now, I'll probably be slobbering and looking stupid in the corner. But um, so I'll probably have the same thing. It's a trait in my family with dementia and Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. But and a lot of people think it was a lot of the aluminums that we used for cooking and drinking, and our beer cans and our drink cans, and you know, cooking a lot of acidic, um, maybe pasta sauces and tomato sauces and stuff that were pretty acidic, and acidic sauces in some of these aluminum pans that would leach some of these ions and stuff. It's not good for you. It's not good for your body and your brain health, and for your um, cells. It's about on the cellular level. So, but so there's these toxins that we drink. Yeah, we drinking smoke anyway. We don't give a fuck, right? Man, that's so good. And I got pretty tipsy. Just that 145 is hitting pretty good, but damn, I screwed my damn beard into the jar. Yeah, that's pretty good stuff right there. Now, I wish y'all, every one of y'all, could try that. And I'll try to save some for the next festival if y'all can make it. You definitely want to try that. Getting a bit bitter note in there. I think I'm going to take those nuts out because it's getting a little after bitter. And I think those nuts have pretty much played out what they were there for. So I'm probably going to pull those. But man, it's so sweet up front. And then it's got that interesting grape flavor. And then finishes a little on the bitter side. And that's those nut tannins. Very complex, man. That's so good. Definitely proud of it. All right, y'all. I caught up at 11 o'clock. Can't believe I caught up right at 11. Now, I told Clint earlier, I've been having migraines last 3 days, and that's probably what it is. I'm on these pain meds and drinking. I probably shouldn't be, but that's why I'm feeling like this. I was wondering, man, that hit me pretty hard, and then I realized, wait a minute, I've been drinking on them pain meds. That's what that's what it is. But yeah, King, we're actually talking about putting together a club and maybe a still where people can in a legal distillery where people can bring their own ideas and there are several out there that will do it for you, King. You have to do the work. You bring in all the materials. They're basically just allowing you to use their steel and bottling equipment for a big percentage of what will be sold, right? So you bring in all the grains, fruits, whatever. You do all the mashing in, you do all the work. You distill it on their stills. You bottle it in their bottles, and they take, a pretty good percentage because they have a lot of overhead where you won't have any except your time and the materials. But there's some out there that will work that deal with you, but you really need to to look and see what their marketing plans are like because a lot of people are promising you a lot of things, but they're not marketing your product, right? So you're putting a lot of, so you're basically filling their jars for them. And, you'll walk away from it. You won't make anything. And several years from now, they might start selling your jars and you'll never know because you'll never get the cut because you walked away. There's a lot of that going on. So you need to really get an attorney, and look over these things. It's very complex. It's a business. That's the biggest problem I think in the industry, and you see a lot of people filing for bankruptcy is because they don't have the business knowledge. They're good distillers. They can make a very good product, but they don't have the business knowledge or the will or ability to market properly because it takes money to market. Anybody can put up a still and put together some grains and make enough runs to make 1,000 or 2 gallons. That's nothing. But to properly market it and get it, sold and distributed, that takes a lot of time and money and the strings, So the business side is really what gets most people. It's not their ability to make a good product. It's their ability to come through on the business end. And that's usually where they're deficient because they've not had the business class, right? They don't know all about the marketing, the business, the accounting. There's so much involved, the government, regulations, the stipulations, the documentation. They just want to make liquor, right? Well, if that's the case, remain a bootlegger because it takes a lot to get into the legal, end unless you work out a deal with somebody like I was talking about earlier. And there's a lot of people out there that will do that. So, but you got to have a product. You got to have an interest in it. So, like on the show, you got a lot of master distillers and a lot of people that have um, prominence and fame from the show itself. And so those are people be marketable, right? So we can market it. This is so and so master distiller, and you saw him on the TV show. Here he is. We got his jar out. That's easy to market, that kind of thing. But if you're Joe Schmo from Kokomo and you've got some of the best fucking shit out there, yeah, who cares? So does everybody else. And it's really tough. So getting people to try it, it's tough. But business is usually when you see all these fermenters and all these stills and all this at auction and all these distilleries closing, it's because they had a dream, but their dream didn't include a business plan. And you're smart that you want to put a business plan together because you realize that that's the deciding factor whether you be successful or not is a proper business plan. I was a business major. I was in business all my life. This isn't my business. This is my passion, my love. I love my hobby. But yeah, it's a lot of business and money. You can do the marketing and create the labels and the story and looks. 33rd, you'll not get a third. I mean, I've seen 10, 15%. And really, you know, you'll see different things from different people, but 10 to 15%, pretty much, because what you have to see is they have all the overhead. They have all the investment, all the equipment, the building, the rent, the steels, the government taxes, and the setting up the business and paying the fees, doing all the documentation. All you're basically doing is bringing in the materials, you know, fermenting it and running it. Then they're doing the rest. And you're putting your name on it. So that's a small contribution, and you're not going to get a third. I can tell you that. And if you can, definitely jump on it because that would be a winning proposition for a third because there's a lot of overhead. All right, everybody. Yeah, and it's you grow up like I did in a place like you know Eastern Kentucky. Yeah, I'd love to have my own distillery. That was a dream of mine, and I wanted to have my own bar too until I become a bartender and bouncer. And it's like, I don't think I want to own a bar anymore. After you work as a bartender and bouncer, it's like, fuck, I want to deal with this on a daily. I just say make it. And I still feel that way. I just say make it is run a bar and have to bounce and all that. I worked at a country western bar, and yeah, you talk about the roughest bar. That is the roughest bar to work in, man. And it's yeah, there's a fight every night, man. Every night it was a fight. Yeah. Yeah, it would be awesome, until it wasn't. Until every night you had to fight and throw people out and deal with the drama and deal with the lawsuits and everything. Yeah, I just soon bottle it, sell it, and be done with it, and forget about it, and let other people deal with the crime drunk on the other end that wants to fight because it's horrible, man. It was bad. Every night that I worked, it was a fight. Always people pushed it, and then you bounce somebody's ass out of there, and you beat the shit out of them, bounce their ass out of there, and then everybody gets a little hard on for you, and they want to fucking try you, and that shit gets old, man. It sucked. It sucked. They want to build a name. They want to. Yeah. Yeah, man. I tell you what, brother. If you want to do that, it sounds like if you understand the business end, go into business. Because that's where most fail is in the business and the marketing. If you got a half-ass product and you can market it well, you'll be fine. So if you understand the business and you want to do that, put together, and if you can't get the money, find investors. You're going to have to work out a percentage, but it's nothing that's worthy is easy. All right, y'all. I gotta get off here. I've been on here 3.5 hours now. Now I'm starting to wind down. I hadn't slept well in 3 days, been migraining out. I'm having to take another pain pill here in a little bit on top of this. So I'm gonna be snoozing for too long. But it's been a great night with everybody. Enjoyed all you newcomers. Thanks for stopping in. And don't forget, we're going to be here on Tuesday nights now at 8 Eastern, 8 Eastern time, and on Saturdays. So spend your Saturdays with us and your Tuesdays. And if not, come back and check us out. You can watch the videos. They're on Fieldbilly's site and on the Moonshine Militia site. You can come back and watch it, which most people do. Come back and check it out at your leisure. And on your lunch hour or on your way to work, you can listen to us. But great having y'all here. And yeah, if you have any more questions, bring them next time, and join the DIY Shine and Steel Building on Facebook, and join the Moonshine Militia. And just tell them you're from Bad Santa's podcast, and answer the questions so we know you're not a bot. And we can answer your questions there on the daily and anytime, pretty much 24/7. There's somebody up, and if not, it'll get answered pretty quickly. You may get 10 different answers from 10 different people, but you'll get an answer. Now, 8 out of 10 will be right, but hey, everybody's trying. But if you see a question and I haven't answered it, but I put a big red heart on it, that means that's probably the one you want to listen to. Or I'll sometimes make a note. This is the right answer. This is what you want to, this is it. But anyway, thanks for tuning in, guys and gals. We'll see you all back here on Saturday, 8 Eastern, or anytime you want to hop on and watch us and listen to us. It's awesome, and most people do. But share it with your friends. Hit that like button and subscribe for sure, and notifications. Some people don't want them, but if you want to know when we log on, hit that notification button, and you'll get, especially on YouTube, they're real good about it. Appreciate you, brother. Y'all take it easy, and we will see you back Saturday night. Everybody have a great rest of your week. Peace out. Shine on. Love y'all.